40, I had stopped. 20 years in the green bamboo mountain market, a low-grade spiritual root, stuck 3 layers into chi refining, drawing talismans for other people's money. I had decided to go home and be ordinary. Then something woke in me that same spring, and the trade I had learned out of desperation turned out to be the one thing worth having. Every talisman I had drawn for 20 years had been practice. The wasted decades were the cheat. Tap that like, hit subscribe, and stick around. Both keep these uploads alive. Let me back up to the day before all of this. The day everything was still wrong. A cold voice cuts through my sleep and reads me out like a verdict. My name first and then my aptitude. Imjangan. Low-grade spiritual root. I jolt awake out of the dream and look through the window, where the first spring rain of the year is trickling down off the eaves. The faint smell of damp earth comes with it, and for one breath, I am back in my early 20s, walking into the cultivation world full of high spirits. 40 years, gone in the time it takes to blink. I listen to the rain patter on the tiles and sigh. I am not young anymore, and after clinging to this for so many years, it is time to let go. I have seen enough of this life to take the rest lightly. Still, staring out at the wet dark, my mind goes back over all of it. 20 years ago, the guiding immortal master, Elder Yuk, picked me and 3 others out of our village. He led us to sit the entrance examination for Iwa Palace, and we walked in insufferably pleased with ourselves. The result was cruel. A low-grade spiritual root at 20 years old meant no sect would take me as a disciple, and I was already considered too old to be taken on as a servant. Elder Yuk was soft-hearted enough to feel bad about it, so he recommended me and Li Ayu, who had failed the same day I did, to the green bamboo mountain market. 20 autumns and winters later, here I still am. A poor spiritual root and no money for cultivation resources add up to 20 wasted years. The only reason I hold chi refining 3rd layer is that I learned a trade. I tell myself I should be content, since a talisman master with a stall at least does not have to hunt demon beasts and lick blood off a blade to eat. I did my best with what I was handed. For 20 years, I stayed clear of every vice and never let myself slack. And outside of eating, drinking, relieving myself, and sleeping, every hour went into cultivation and talismans. I was in the rat race in my last life, and I am in the rat race in this one, and I have nothing left to give it. I have reached 40, so it is time to accept my fate. That is the whole eulogy. It took me 2 decades to write. Someone hammers on my door hard enough to shake the frame. Li Liu calls through it, asking whether I am all right since I drank so much at the brothel yesterday that he spent the night worrying about me. I get the door open and he lets out his breath at the sight of my face. I tell him I am fine, and I notice that I am smiling when I say it. Li Liu was one of the 4 who failed the selection with me, a brother in adversity, and we came out to the green bamboo mountain market together. The difference is that he chose to marry into a family. 20 years have sanded every trace of the farm off him, and he stands in my doorway as a cultivator at chi refining 4th layer. He looks at the state of me, puts a hand on my shoulder, and tells me helplessly that we have made it through all these years, and that he understands. Something in my chest goes warm at that. Marrying into a family is no easy road for a cultivator either. Back then, the Jew family were losing a struggle over resources, and needed their origin chi restored in a hurry, which is the only reason the opening existed in the first place. In ordinary times, a chance like that never comes at all. I catch myself eyeing his robe with plain envy. I tried for that position myself back then. The Jew family were not shopping for a handsome face. They wanted honest and dependable, and a man like me was cut on sight. Apparently, my face testified against me. Li Lu sighs again. He is not the simple farm boy he used to be, and there is a great family's manners in the way he carries a silence now. I wave it off and put on an easy face. I tell him a cultivator at the chi refining stage can always go down to the mortal world and preside over a whole region. Good land, a big house, a few beautiful maidens, and it would not be a bad way to finish. I laugh and warn him not to get envious when my good days arrive. He grins and agrees, thinking about his own life as a son-in-law. Anyone else would have swallowed that carefree smile whole. A bitter cultivator who has lived the same day for 20 years knows exactly what his own face is worth. Then Li Liu remembers what he actually came for, and he drops his voice and tells me awkwardly that my plan to go back down may have to sit on the shelf a while longer. When I ask what happened, he says the order has come from above to increase the intensity of the land reclamation, and he does not need to finish the sentence. 20 years in this market means I can hear the rest myself, and the helplessness lands before he stops talking. When a man is born for bad luck, even cold water gets stuck in his teeth. I decide to give up on going home, and the very next morning the world decides to charge me rent for staying. This market took more than 20 years of reclamation to reach its current size. Statute labor comes every 3 years, with a tax for anyone who would rather not swing a hoe on the frontier. If the intensity is going up, the tax in place of service is going to double. I tell him I understand, and that it seems I will be back at my old trade, grinding a while longer. I want to leave, and the circumstances have a hand flat on my chest. Li Liu, meanwhile, glances left and right like a man about to do something illegal, then pulls off one of his long boots and fishes out a cloth bundle with a certain smell attached. I scold him with a laugh and tell him 20 years have not cured that habit. By then he has the bundle open, 26 spirit crystals on the cloth, each the size of a fingernail. Spirit crystals are the small change of the cultivation world, the unit sitting under spirit stones. He pushes them toward me and tells me to borrow them for now. He knows I have been disheartened and packing for the mortal world, and that every spirit stone I had is already mortal goods. This time I do not refuse his kindness, because with all the preparations I made, my pockets are cleaner than my face. I thank him, and he says seriously that I helped him a great deal back then. When we first stepped into the cultivation world, I looked after him constantly. When the Jew family posted their requirements for a son-in-law, I read them and ran home to fetch him. I see him off at the door and watch him walk away through the curtain of rain without a single drop landing on him. A low-grade magic robe. He got a child with a spiritual root first, and now he has broken through himself, so his life inside the Jew family is about to get easier. I close the door on that thought before it can get comfortable. The gold and silver jewelry across my table would make an ordinary man greedy. I sweep it into a cloth bag like so much dirt, because that is what it is worth up here. It is still the money for my eventual trip down, so I toss the bag into the corner by the door. Time to make talismans again. I rub my temples and settle cross-legged on the bed. Talisman making is delicate work that wants a clear head and steady energy, and in this state I cannot afford to burn good paper and cinnabar. So I sit and start to circulate the Everspring art, and a light flares up that has no business being there. My eyes go wide, a panel hangs open in my mind and reads my entire life back in tidy lines. It gives my name as M. Jangan and my lifespan as 40 out of 88. It puts my realm at Chi Refining 3rd layer, 95 out of 100, and my cultivation technique, the Everspring art, at 489 proficiency out of 500. Under skills it lists my Golden Light Talisman at 498 out of 500, and my Godspeed Talisman at 358. Then it runs down my spells. The Fireball technique at 450 mastery out of 1000, the Breath Concealment technique at 210, and the Invisibility technique at 120. The Object Manipulation technique sits at 478 out of 500, and the list trails off with more besides. The sight of it knocks a wild, stupid joy through me. 40 years, 20 in the mortal world and 20 in the cultivation world, and I have finally been handed a cheat of my own. Then the obvious question arrives and my face pulls into a squint, because I want to know how the thing woke up. I went to sleep, and before that I went to a brothel, and it cannot have been a woman, since that was hardly my first visit. The wine. I stare at my big bed with the answer sitting right there. If I have this right, I drank far too much last night, and after Li Liu hauled me home, I drank myself most of the way to dead without noticing, which means the cheat switched on at the exact moment my life was leaving. I slap the table and inform the empty room that the wine must have been watered down, and my eyes slide sideways and catch the mirror. The man in it is handsome and gentle-featured, bright and elegant, 40 years old without a sign of it, carrying nothing worse than a settled maturity. That face is precisely why the Jew family threw me out first. Right now, though, there is a heaviness between his brows and a faint blue under his eyes, and the sight drains the color out of me. A few days of moping and I have turned into that. I slap my thigh and swear off drinking as of today. I have been slack lately and I know why, and whatever excuse I had expired the instant the panel opened. My chance has arrived and I am not wasting it. My face is alive again, and the spirit in my chest is the one I carried the first time I walked into the cultivation world. There is no calming down enough to cultivate, so instead I spend the whole day opening the panel and closing it again, opening it and closing it, over and over. The drizzle keeps falling until night comes down over the mountain. The market loses its daytime noise, and I am still sitting where I started, eyes bloodshot, face lit with something I cannot talk down. I had not slept for a full day, afraid that if I close my eyes and open them again, the panel will turn out to be a drunk man's hallucination. I tell myself to stop indulging it. This is only the beginning, and proving the Tao and reaching a long life may not be a pipe dream after all. I take a deep breath, get up, and shove my head into a basin of cold water until my heart slows, then come up gasping. Since I was on my way down to the mortal world, most of my spirit crystals have gone into things I have no use for. The urgent problem is the statute labor Li Lu warned me about. In past years, the labor tax ran 5 spirit stones, and this time it will be 10 at least. For a loose cultivator at the early stage of chi refining, 10 spirit stones is real money. I have to have it ready in advance, because a man who cannot pay gets sent out with a land reclamation cruise. So I sit down and count what I actually own. There is a chest of gold, silver, and jewelry, useless up here, and a bag of mortal world cultivation manuals, martial skills, and sharp weapons, equally useless. There are 15 low-grade first-tier golden light talismans and 10 Godspeed talismans. There is one low-grade magical artifact, my green bamboo sword. Everything else on the table is the talisman-making kit I live off, and the Everspring art itself. Besides the 26 spirit crystals I borrowed from Li Lu, I have another 20 of my own. I dig them out one at a time from the inner pocket of my long boots. Looking at the entire sum of my property, I nod at it. Every crystal I earned in 20 years went back into cultivation, which is why the pile is this short. I need money, and I need it quickly. Midnight finds me at the table. Talisman making wants a calm mind and a gathered spirit. I light the calming incense, lay out every tool, and sit with my eyes shut 2 full hours before my heart goes quiet enough to start. Then I open the jade bottle and dip the spirit brush into the special cinnabar inside it. I hold my breath and narrow everything down to the paper in front of me. Nearly 20 years of this, and the golden light talisman most of all. Gentle mana runs out of my palm, down through the brush tip, and lays itself onto the paper even and steady. Metal attributes spirit beast blood carries in the cinnabar, and the brush tip moves across the sheet like a dragon in water, smooth from the first stroke to the last. My body has done this so many times that it does the thinking without consulting me. A ball of flame lifts off the sheet, and the paper burns itself down with no fire touching it. I wave the ashes apart without a flinch, having watched it happen more times than I can count, and pull out the next sheet. 3 failures in, the 4th talisman finishes. A line of writing flashes across the panel in my sea of consciousness, putting the golden light talisman at 499 proficiency out of 500. I sit and stare at it for a long while before the breath goes out of me. So that is how it works. Talisman making used to keep me fed, and now there is a road under my feet. The panel updates again and tells me the golden light talisman has advanced, resetting it to 0 mastery out of 1000. The moment that high-quality talisman comes off my brush, understanding pours in, insight after insight flashing back through every sheet I ever ruined. When I finally opened my eyes, I know what the breakthrough handed me. It was not a stronger hand, it was my own sight, clouds parting off a mountain I have been standing on for 20 years. I look down at the finished golden light talisman on the table and count up all the wrong and unnecessary strokes I have been putting into these things. By the time the night burns out, there are 8 golden light talismans lined up neatly on my table. With the skill at mastery, each one costs me 1/10 less mana than it used to, and saved mana is saved spirit crystals. And somewhere in that night, I finally work out what my cheat actually does. Effort gets paid. It is not that finishing 1 talisman adds a point, because 8 finished talismans did not add 2 points of proficiency. One of last night's points arrived the instant I thought to myself that it could be done another way, which means my own insight counts as work too. As long as I put my heart into a thing, the thing pays me back. The idea of grinding proficiency dies before it can take root. If I do not put my heart into the work, I could turn out hundreds of golden light talismans and not move the number by a hair. Do it with everything I have and the effort gets paid. And that is the whole correct use of this cheat. It still leaves the other half of the problem, because the cultivation world is treacherous, and one careless step turns into a fatal disaster. When I first came to this market, I had plenty of passion for going out with a band of like-minded fellow Taoists and hunting demon beasts, getting rich overnight, trading the haul for spirit pills, breaking through on the proceeds. That was always the story of the lucky ones, and most of the rest ended face down in their own blood. Several men at the chi refining middle stage died on those hunts, and I was at the early stage and walked home. Say what anyone likes about my aptitude, that arithmetic makes me one of the fortunate. A night of talisman making leaves my mana nearly dry, and I am smiling about it. I even break out the spirit crystals I normally cannot bring myself to spend, and burn them, restoring what I used. By the time I am done, it is bright outside and the rain has stopped. Warm sunlight pours over a washed world, and the water beating on the emerald bamboo leaves past the market wall throws off little points of light. The market is already loud by the time I get out into it. The peddlers are shouting over each other from their stalls. One sells fresh demon beast meat slaughtered yesterday at 10 pounds for a spirit crystal. Another pushes fasting pills as a necessity for anyone going deep into the wilderness. I walk the bluestone pavement and take a long breath of an environment I know down to the cracks. Better to stay, after all. All that reluctance I carried while packing already feels like it belonged to another man, and the feeling is good. Plenty of the acquaintances I pass take one look at my bloodshot eyes and shake their heads privately, wondering whether they are not looking at their own future. Strangers brush by without a word, but the ones I know smile, cup their hands, and greet me respectfully as a fellow Taoist. 20 years in this market, and today, with a different heart in my chest, I have more smiles to hand back than usual. A great many people here are doing worse than I am. Then I catch one numb face after another, and it takes the excitement out of me by degrees. I remember the high spirits I walked in with, and what reality did to them. It is unwillingness that keeps these men going. Nothing finer than that. That was me, and the road ahead is still long in a world that never stops changing. Under the morning light, I walk with a firm step through a street full of hurried, empty faces. Fellow Taoist Na, the cultivator who sells meat, stares after me and cannot work out what is different about me today. Someone tells him the rumor that fellow Taoist Im is preparing to head down to the mortal world, and Na sighs and says he understands. The fellow Taoists who know me shake their heads, since they have watched this many times and expect their own turn. There are more than a few cultivators here who could go down and live comfortably tomorrow, and stay anyway, grinding on for the chance at a child born with a spiritual root. I follow the main street to Jimbo Tower, which is Iwa Palace's shop in this market. Shopkeeper Mio comes out to meet me with a beaming smile and remarks that I am early today. The moment he sees the talismans I bring out, the smile turns sincere. He tells me he said all along that there was no reason to go running off to the mortal world. My talismans keep improving, and the Everspring art is famous for accumulating slowly and steadily. I nod and admit his eyes are sharp, and that I am prepared to stay. He and I have dealt with each other nearly 20 years, from my days on a demon beast hunting team to my life as a talisman master. Since I buy my cinnabar and paper here, he knows my roots as well as I know his. When I put 20 golden light talismans and 8 Godspeed talismans on his counter, he knows I am not going anywhere. Nobody goes down without savings, and once a man is outside, talisman materials are hard to come by. Then he gets to one particular sheet, and something like disbelief crosses his face as he names it a high-quality golden light talisman. I tell him his wisdom eye is as sharp as lightning. He looks at me then with open amusement and says he had been wondering why my energy and spirit were different today, and now he has his answer. He is honestly happy about it, not only because he has gained a bigger client, but because a customer of 20 years has finally broken through. He quotes the old saying that among the 100 arts of cultivation, the talisman, the pill, the artifact, and the array stand foremost. The talisman art is simple, easy to learn, and brutal to master. Then he congratulates me on real progress. I take it with more feeling than I expect. I tell him one leaf had been sitting over my eyes all this time, and that I never imagined the breakthrough would come in the middle of giving up. 20 years of bitter cultivation, and only I know the taste of it. Mayo nods because he has watched countless cultivators spend a whole life grinding at one thin layer of window paper without punching through. Then he asks whether I want spirit stones or materials. Spirit stones. After 20 years, somebody is finally offering me something other than spirit crystals, and I have to hold my face still. I tell him the usual, and he calls for 2 stacks of talisman paper and 1 bottle of gold attribute cinnabar. 2 thick stacks of yellow paper and a jade bottle land in front of me. He totals the materials at 20 spirit crystals, hands me 34 spirit crystals and change, and adds 1 spirit stone on top for the high-quality golden light talisman. I look down at a spirit stone the size of a baby's palm and cannot keep the joy off my face. That one sheet just multiplied its value 5 times over, and jumped an entire unit of currency. Mayo is beaming too, since a talisman master who can turn out high-quality work has a future. I tuck the spirit stone against my chest, and let myself stare a moment too long at the spirit gathering array set into his shop floor. Once the labor tax is paid for, I am having one of those. On the way home, I buy 50 pounds of spirit rice, 10 pounds of demon beast meat, and a load of spirit vegetables. I cultivate bitterly, but I have never once cheated my own stomach. That is not appetite talking, that is cultivation. Back at the house, I look at a full rice jar, steamed spirit rice, and a pot of spirit meat going, and the smell alone puts a smile on me. If I had been eating spirit meat every day, I would not have needed 20 years. My aptitude is genuinely poor, but 20 years stuck at chi refining 3rd layer was never an aptitude problem. It was a money problem. That is the honest situation for countless cultivators out there. They look like they cultivated for 2 decades, when most of it went on errands and scraping, with the cultivation squeezed into the gaps. I pick up my chopsticks and go through everything on that table like weather. I eat the demon beast meat straight out of the pot, which is more extravagance than I have allowed myself in years. Afterward, past the grease on my mouth, I can feel the food working through my body. I think about the great Foundation establishment clans, where a child with an ordinary low-grade spiritual root strolls to the chi-refining middle stage without breaking stride. No matter which world a man is born into, what some spend a lifetime chasing, others are simply handed at birth. Spirit rice every day, spirit meat every meal, and diligence on top of it. And chi-refining 4th layer stops being a mountain. When the spirit stones start coming in, I am not just eating meat daily, I am buying a storage pouch. Picturing that, meat at every meal, and my household folded away at a flick of my finger, puts more fire in me than any lecture on discipline. The panel tells me the Everspring art has gone up 1.2 to 490.2 proficiency out of 500. A few days go by in a blur. I open my eyes at home one morning with a smile already on my face, because progress a man can actually see turns out to be addictive. Most of those days I did nothing but eat and sleep, and only after 3 full days of recharging did I sit down to cultivate it all. That is not laziness. Talisman making eats a man's essence, energy, and spirit, and I was greedy that night, so it cost me 3 days to climb back out of the hole. I do not regret 1 minute of it. The cheat was the catalyst, but what kept me at that table until dawn were the insights flooding in after the golden light talisman broke through. That feeling is close to intoxicating. Anyone who has held a realization like that understands why I kept drawing, trying to burn the sensation into memory before it faded. So when I turned up at the shop looking run into the ground, dark circles and all, shopkeeper Maya was not surprised. What happened to me is the exact thing half the market prays for and never gets. Proficiency in a cultivation technique, I am learning, is really a measure of understanding, of how much of the thing a man has actually comprehended. Those quiet days moved the Everspring art by 1.2 and handed me a fistful of insights along with it. The higher the comprehension, the better every hour of cultivation pays. So beyond the ceiling a spiritual root sets, there is a second variable nobody advertises, and it is comprehension ability. 2 men with identical talent will end up in different places entirely depending on it. When I check my realm, Chi Refining 3rd layer reads 95.1 out of 100, and I smile at that decimal point like it owes me money. Spirit meat, spirit rice, and spirit stones underneath it all, and suddenly cultivation moves. I know what is doing the work. Living frugally, I could swap my low-grade spiritual root for a high-grade one tomorrow and still crawl. The old saying puts wealth, companions, technique, and land in that order. And wealth is first for a reason. Cultivation has only just started for me, so the priority is spirit stones, first to pay back Li Lu, then to cover the labor tax, and then I can finally cultivate in peace. For days after that I do not set foot outside. I make talismans and practice chi refining, and when my mind is too worn to draw, I rest by cultivating rather than waste a sheet of material. The days are so full I forget to notice them passing. My hands have improved enough to hold a rate of 1 high-quality golden light talisman out of every 5. My success rate rides high on a good mood, and even the tedium of chi refining has its hooks in me. Then somebody knocks and a familiar voice calls in that it is him. I open up and greet old man Heo, who is a rare guest. He is a neighbor and an old friend, and that thin withered face splits into its usual smile, short a few yellow teeth. He tells me not to talk like that since we are neighbors, and says he heard I was going back to the mortal world and has been worried. My mouth twitches at that, but I let it go and wave him inside. Peers are supposed to be rivals, except old man Heo's specialty is fireball talismans, so there has never been an inch of competition between us. He gets through the doorway, that red nose takes one hard sniff, and his whole face changes. He announces he has been wondering whose house was stewing spirit meat every day and nearly drooling himself to death over it. I offer to feed him in a while, purely to watch what happens. He waves both hands and refuses, informing me that this old man is not falling for anything, since there is no such thing as a free lunch. He plays the part of a man chasing small advantages, and everyone who knows him knows he is the shrewdest operator on the street. I brew tea, and 2 cups and his patience gives out and he puts his hand flat over the cup. He complains that I am more composed than he is and that he has apparently lived his 60-odd years for nothing. I laugh and ask him who in this market does not know that he is either saving spirit stones for his grandson or simply saving spirit stones. Underneath the teasing there is something else. When old man Heo was young, he was a master at chi refining 6th layer, and the first hunting team I ever joined in this market was his. A demon beast ambushed them on one of those hunts. The team was cut to pieces, and by the time he was up and walking again, his origin chi was ruined. Add years on top of ruined origin chi, and he is barely past 60 wearing the face of an 80-year-old. Cultivation fallen back to chi refining 5th layer. By the standards of a cultivator's body, aging like that means hidden injuries stacked on hidden injuries. That is what happens to men who live by the blade. He leans in and asks whether I have heard. The higher-ups are increasing the intensity of land reclamation on a scale nobody has seen, and even the labor tax is going up to this much. He holds up both index fingers and crosses them, and says the number out loud. 10 spirit stones. I was expecting it, and it still lands like a fist. 10 spirit stones is more than an ordinary cultivator can part with, so most will gamble on the reclamation cruise instead. I ask him plainly whether that is what brought him over, since his own talisman work is nothing to be ashamed of. He rubs those thin, dry hands together and laughs, awkward about it. His grandson's aptitude is not bad at all. The boy is not going to rot in this market the way his grandfather has, and he intends to send him to Iwa Palace. Pride comes up through the embarrassment when he says it. There is only the one grandson, and every spirit stone the old man earns goes straight into laying that boy's foundation, and I have envied him for it more than once. Then he says it. He came to borrow 2 golden light talismans. My face goes hard because I know what an old man borrows attack talismans for. He makes an embarrassed noise and looks away, and nobody meeting him now would believe that 20 years ago he was an iron-blooded man whose flaming blade had a real reputation. Life bent him into what sits across from me. I ask him whether he honestly still thinks he is young at his age, and whether he has lost his mind entirely. He answers slowly that he and I are both loose cultivators by origin. If an opportunity were laid out in front of me, could I really walk away from it? That shuts me up. Strip the cheat back out of my life, put a chance in front of me tonight, and I know perfectly well what I would do. So I shake my head, say nothing further, turn his cup back over and pour him more tea. He scolds me with a laugh and tells me to get lost, since he is not in his grave yet. Then he sees what is sitting beside the cup, 2 high-quality golden light talismans and 1 Godspeed talisman, and his old eyes go wet. I do not look at the talismans at all. I just tell him the price is 2 spirit stones and that I had better not hear a word about reneging once the job is done. We look at each other and we both start laughing. For a moment in that setting sun, we are young again. A strong man with a big blade and a boy who has only just walked into the world. Half a month goes by with no word from old man Heo, and I catch myself hoping he is all right, since I owed that old man kindness long before he owed me talismans. Then, one morning, the high-quality golden light talisman lying on my table shuts me up entirely. The panel has my golden light talisman at proficient, 8 out of 1,000, and my Godspeed talisman still at skilled, 358 out of 500. The quality of the sheet is flawless, and the success rate is fine, and something about that success rate is wrong in a way I cannot immediately name. For an experienced talisman master, 3 or 4 high-quality sheets out of 10 is normal, provided he has his state adjusted. That adjustment is the entire catch, because it takes calming, focusing, and a whole ritual of preparation, and holding it 2 or 3 times in a month is considered doing well. I take a slow breath and pick the brush back up with my hands shaking and my mind in absolute mess. No calming, no focus. Straight into the work. A pale golden, high-quality golden light talisman comes off the paper anyway. My heart starts pounding, and I keep going. Most of the sheets come out ordinary, and a few come out high quality, and I never once stop to compose myself, and I only quit when my chi is nearly gone. Breathing hard over the table, I look at the panel and start shaking from a mix of shock and joy. The state is locked. That is what this is, and everything makes sense at once. The very best talisman master alive touches his peak only while his mind is calm and gathered. When the mental energy runs out, he has to stop and rest to get the state back. I do not have to. Once I break through into that state, I simply stay in it. As long as my mana holds, I skip the entire tedious ritual and keep the best success rate I own, permanently. Certified once, certified forever, and all I have to do is work. Which raises the question of how many spirit stones I have set on fire in my life. I used to worry about wasting materials, so I would draw 2 talismans and stop, which is exactly why I never noticed. My future has a shape now. An ordinary talisman master fresh off a breakthrough manages 4 or 5 high-quality golden light talismans a month. And only while he can hold his state, I can go all out and turn out 10 times that, since my only real cost is mental energy and mana. 10-fold means 40 or 50 spirit stones a month, a number I would not have dared to say out loud a season ago. Then the cold water hits. 3 or 4 a month is normal, and 5 or 6 reads as a man with some talent who has finally punched through the window paper. Dozens a month announces to every pair of eyes in this market that I am sitting on an opportunity. The cultivation world is volatile, and I am carrying the best talent I have ever heard of. So caution is now part of the job. I cannot afford to leave money on the table, and I cannot afford to be obvious about taking it. I put down the spirit brush and settle cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. Roughly 1 breath later, I pull the quilt over my head, and the quilt shakes for quite a while with the sound of a 40-year-old man laughing into it. A month later, with my materials nearly gone, I walk into Jinbo Tower to find shopkeeper Mayo. He takes one look at 6 high-quality golden light talismans and his old face nearly splits. While he counts out my paper and cinnabar, he jokes that this is how the 100 arts work. No results no matter how hard a man tries. Until the breakthrough opens a whole new world. Then he mentions the shop has just taken in a batch of golden marrow pills and suggests I swallow one since it might carry me through my next bottleneck. He has the look of a man who has spotted a fat sheep. I am tempted, and I shake my head and tell him the labor tax comes first. He agrees, and adds that a great many foreign loose cultivators have drifted in lately, waiting on the authorities to organize the reclamation next spring. He is a salesman by trade, so once he sees I am not buying, he switches to gossip, and the gossip is not comforting. I have been seeing the unfamiliar faces myself. The Green Bamboo Mountain Market falls under Iwa Palace, and an expanded reclamation always drags loose cultivators in from everywhere. It dragged me in 20 years ago on the strength of the same promises. Then Mayo mentions offhand that the authorities have released 5 slots for the Foundation Establishment pill this time, and the number goes through me like ice water. The reclamation I signed up for as a young man dangled 2 Foundation Establishment pills, and it left corpses across half the mountain. He tells me to be careful in the coming months, since foreign loose cultivators are the least governable men alive. Most opportunities of this kind are things a man has the life to chase but not the life to enjoy. He shakes his head over the market's near future while he says it. So I slap down the spirit stones I have not even finished warming, and ask him for 1 golden marrow pill and 1 storage pouch. 5 spirit stones on his counter, 2 for the pill and 3 for the pouch. And shopkeeper Mayo lights up like a festival. He promises to pick out the best pill in the batch and throws in a stack of talisman paper. With my foundation and the Everspring Arts habit of accumulating and then erupting, he says this one will take me through. I walk out of that shop holding an exquisite storage pouch and a jade bottle, straight into a cool breeze and a market full of noise. Money earned in this market is money spent in this market, and not a coin of it ever makes it home. I laugh at myself and stay grateful anyway, because his warning was real even if the point of it was to open my purse. Cultivation boosting pills always sell, and they will sell harder with this many strangers in town. Walking among all those unfamiliar faces, I get more nervous with every block. I remember the last great reclamation far too well, and an influx of loose cultivators means opportunity and chaos arriving in the same cart. The peace in this market is about to break. There are always a few outsiders around and they never change the temperature of the place. Only the old hands understand what a crowd this size means, and it puts a clock on me. I need the chi refining middle stage under me, because at that point I can at least protect myself. Sighing my way down the street, I walk without paying attention and end up in front of a pavilion with carved beams and painted rafters. 2 big red lanterns hang over the door, and a dim pink glow comes out of it in broad daylight. 2 young female cultivators come out yawning, spot a regular customer, and brighten immediately. The first one calls out to me by name and claims her sisters could not stand up straight the day after my last visit. Then she offers a discount and invites me in for a cup of hot tea. The second says she hears I can make high-quality golden light talismans now, and asks how bitter cultivation could compare with an afternoon in their company. They are wearing thin red palace dresses as light as cicada wings, still carrying the lazy fatigue of women who have only just woken up. Between the faces, the figures, and the practiced charm, they are very hard to walk past. Their eyes, though, are the exact eyes shopkeeper Maya wore an hour ago. I clear my throat and tell them today is no good, that I still have to pay Liulu back, and that it will have to be another day. I cultivate bitterly, but I have always believed in balancing work and rest. Right now is simply not the time. A voice follows me down the street pointing out that tea costs no spirit crystals, which is the sort of thing a heart demon says. I keep walking, because my will is firm and I want to go home and play with my storage pouch. These pink skeletons are not damaging my Dao heart today. I want Lilu's spirit crystals off my conscience the moment he is back, so I go by his place first and find nobody home. I buy 10 pounds of demon beast meat on the walk back instead. Then I spend the middle of the night wide awake, sending my green bamboo sword into the storage pouch and pulling it out again, grinning the entire time. I could have afforded one years ago and never bought one, because it was an extravagance a man in my position had no business wanting. Today is not those years. Looking at the finished talismans stacked on my table though, my face goes serious again. Peddling high-quality goods openly at my cultivation level is a genuine risk, and a man of status builds the strength before he advertises the product. I am not the bottom-rung loose cultivator who used to bleed for a handful of spirit crystals anymore. A life is supposed to move forward. I sleep with the storage pouch in my arms and I sleep extremely well. A few days later, the doors and windows of my house are papered over with golden light talismans. I sit cross-legged in the middle of it, with my hands sealed and my palms and soles turned toward the sky. I circulate the wood element Everspring art until I cannot tell where I stop and the world starts. And that day I finally reach the critical point. It arrives like thunder with no sound in it. The shackles come apart and every inch of skin on me feels like it is celebrating, flooded with energy that has no bottom. The mana in my body surges hard, so I hold my mind steady and run the Everspring art through several cycles until everything settles. Then I let out one long breath of turbid air and open my eyes on a different life. 20 years of cultivation, 40 years old, and I have finally stepped into the chi refining middle stage. The 4th layer is the threshold, and I am standing on the other side of it with too many feelings at once, most of them not entirely happy. So this is the middle stage. They say the chi refining 4th layer is the first real step onto the path of immortality, and now I understand why. My 5 senses have sharpened several times over, my mind has gone clear, and memories from both of my lifetimes that had blurred into fog are suddenly distinct enough to touch. Sharp ears, bright eyes, marrow cleansed, wisdom opened, and that is the honest difference between a cultivator and a mortal. My mana is denser too, and there is twice as much of it. The panel confirms all of it. My lifespan now reads 40 out of 98, my realm chi refining 4th layer at 0 out of 100, and my Everspring art at proficient 8 out of 1000. The realm reset is ordinary, and the extra decade of life makes sense, since a wood element technique like the Everspring art is famous for prolonging life and holding off age. What surprises me is that the Everspring art itself broke through alongside me. Breaking into the 4th layer deepened my understanding of the technique, and since that understanding came out of my own body rather than a book, the panel paid me for it. Proficiency in a technique tracks how deeply a man understands it, which in plain language is comprehension ability. Beyond the ceiling my spiritual root sets, that is the thing governing how fast I climb, and a deep enough understanding can make up part of the gap talent left me. I go out and buy spirit fruits I normally cannot bring myself to eat, because a breakthrough deserves marking. Then it is back to the routine, talismans and cultivation, with a new habit folded in of sitting and turning the Everspring art over in my mind whenever I have an idle hour. Half a month later, Li Lu finally comes home and turns up at my door grinning, with 2 jugs of spirit wine under his arm. He steps inside, scans the room out of habit, and stops dead at the demon beast meat stewing in the precious spirit fruits on my table. 20 years ago, he would have missed it. He does not miss it now, and he swings around and says I have broken through. He can see it on me, an aura he cannot read anymore, where my chi refining 3rd layer used to be transparent to him at a glance. I tell him I bought a golden marrow pill at Jinbo Tower a while back, and got lucky, and I fail completely to keep the corners of my mouth down. He pounds my shoulder and says now the 2 of us can cultivate side by side in this market until we are old. Time changes people, and in front of me Li Lu is still the honest man he always was. He sets the wine down and declares 2 jugs the right amount for celebrating. A close friend is rare in the cultivation world, and we lay out the stewed meat and the spirit fruits without needing to discuss it. I hand back the spirit crystals I borrowed, which saves me another trip across the market. We pour, we drink the first cup straight down without a word, and only then do the chopsticks move. Li Lu tells me it is not just his opinion. My talisman art improved, and then my cultivation broke through, which is the Everspring art doing what it is famous for, and my road ahead is genuinely promising. I nod and take the compliment because I see no reason to be modest about a breakthrough and no audience worth performing for. To a great cultivator at the chi refining late stage, it would not merit a sentence. To loose cultivators who came up from the bottom, every inch is worth a cup. 3 rounds in, his face is flushed and he gets to the real subject. He says my craftsmanship on high-quality golden light talismans already proves I have the hands for medium-grade first-tier work. With my cultivation where it now is, I should be thinking about that sooner rather than later. I tell him seriously that I understand. Everything I have ever made, high quality or not, is low-grade first tier, and calling it infinitely close to medium-grade first tier does not close the gap, as anyone can tell from the prices. Every talisman-making method in open circulation is low-grade first tier. Everything above that is locked up by the cultivation families and the sects, because nobody lets a precious thing wander around loose. Li Lu looks simple and is nothing of the kind, and when we catch each other's eye, we both smile. Neither of us says the obvious part out loud, which is that a method like that is going to cost me. At my age, a sect is out of the question. The best I could hope for is a post as a talisman master inside some sect-run business, or else I go over to one of the cultivation families. Li Yu was not subtle about which family he meant, since the beast-taming Jew family holds a talisman-making legacy of its own, which stands to reason for a house with several hundred years behind it. Staring out at the night sky afterward, I frown and then laugh at myself. Half a year ago, I was scraping for spirit crystals, and now I am scheming to get my hands on a medium-grade first-tier method. People are greedy by construction. The step up from low-grade first-tier already moved my prices from spirit crystals into spirit stones, and medium-grade first-tier starts at 3 spirit stones a sheet. Those methods exist out there, in the hands of a very small number of cultivators, surfacing at an auction now and then. The trouble with signing onto a family is that a man stops owning his own hours. Still, a reclamation on this scale means 2 or 3 unsettled years ahead, and unsettled years make the families generous with their terms. I work all that over while my hands stay busy, sending the green bamboo sword into the storage pouch and calling it back out again. When the night gets deep enough that the market goes quiet, I decide the black market is worth a visit, partly on the chance of a find, mostly to turn goods into spirit crystals. I load the thick stack of low-grade first-tier Godspeed talismans I have built up, and the green bamboo sword goes in after them. All that practice was never about novelty. It was about learning exactly where the sword sits, so my hand can find it without thinking. Nobody at the chi refining middle stage bothers with cheap talismans a pauper buys, unless he is badly short of money. Standing at the mirror, I let my face crawl, and my frame shifts along with it. What looks back at me is a slab of scarred flesh with a vicious jaw. Nothing like the man who lives here. It has been years since I used that trick, and I am pleased to find it still fits. Before I ever touched cultivation, I trained in the martial arts down in the mortal world. Since the whole point of learning letters and arms is to sell them to an emperor, I went to the capital. What I found there instead, by pure luck, was Elder Yuke the Immortal Master, standing in a prince's mansion. And everything since came out of that one afternoon. Even so, I take no chances. I run the breath concealment technique at proficient level and pin my aura down to chi refining 2nd layer, which should hold against anything below 6th layer. Then a black robe, a bamboo hat, and a plain mortal sword off the hook by the door. Out past the edge of the market, figures are already moving through a shantytown. This is the black market, where a man can sell what cannot stand daylight, or what he would rather nobody knew he owned, and where the stall fees are next to nothing. Demon beast meat, talismans, medicinal pills, even magical artifacts turn up here. Everyone comes in a hurry with their head down, buys in a low voice, and leaves, because cheap stalls buy exactly as much safety as they cost. The whole thing lasts 2 hours a night, and empties out the moment dawn touches it. Nobody shouts, so every stall just stands a sign, one offering demon beast meat at 12 pounds for a spirit crystal, another offering fireball talismans at 2 spirit crystals each, or 6 for 10. I pay my 1 spirit crystal, and the face under my bamboo hat sends a good number of eyes to the ground as I pass. My own sign offers low-grade 1st-tier Godspeed talismans, 2 spirit crystals apiece or 6 for 10. Talismans are consumables, and the ones that keep a man alive, speed and defense, are permanently in short supply. I have barely finished setting up when a figure in a bamboo hat walks over and drops 10 spirit crystals, saying only the count. I hand across 6 Godspeed talismans without a word of my own. I could offer 7 for 10 and clear the whole stack in minutes, and that is exactly the sort of generosity that gets a man remembered. Standing out requires strength to stand on, and until a man has it, blending in is how he keeps breathing. While I mind the stall, I watch the crowd, and I know this place. Since I lived out here 5 years before I could afford to move in, the reclamation has pulled the population up 3-fold at least, and everything on the outer perimeter is moving fast. My talismans are gone in under an hour, and instead of relief I feel worry, because more cultivators means more outsiders, and outsiders do not keep to the rules. I have watched this cycle turn several times in 20 years, which makes me an old-timer, and mostly it makes me grateful I no longer sleep on the outskirts. I pack up and push deeper in to see whether anyone is selling a genuine medium-grade 1st-tier talisman manual. My mouth twists after 1 circuit, because I was optimistic in the wrong direction. The problem is not that such manuals are absent, it is that there are far too many of them. Talis manuals, alchemy formulas, artifact refining texts, array diagrams, all of it laid out, priced anywhere from a few spirit crystals to well over 10 spirit stones. With outsiders flooding in, the local old hands have set up shop to fleece them. So between visitors who ignore the rules and residents who cheat, everyone here is somebody's mark. Nobody sane buys blind, since nothing can be verified, and a man who has cheated will not find the seller again the following night. An experienced eye can judge from the pages a seller lets him see, except the real professionals show a genuine opening section and fill everything after it with garbage. None of which stops a fresh crop of cultivators diving in every year, dreaming of flying swords and foundation establishment. I look through a great many manuals, and everyone is fake, and eventually I admit that stories about stumbling onto treasure in a back alley live only in stories. Medium-grade 1st-tier methods really are rare goods. I do one more lap out of stubbornness and give up. Stolen goods do surface here sometimes, since an unlucky talisman master, or his son, or his disciple occasionally gets killed and stripped and his belongings end up on a blanket in the dark. Not tonight and not for me. So I leave before dawn with my feet on the ground where they belong. 3 men follow me out of the black market. One of them tells his big brother that I am the one, that he has been watching me wander 3 full circuits without buying anything. Nobody walks a black market for pleasure, so a man who buys nothing has no money, and a man with no money has no cultivation, and a man with no cultivation is a sheep. Along the gray misted streets, several foreign loose cultivators are sizing up everyone coming out of the market, and I feel the weight of eyes on me the instant I clear the last stall. One of them comes toward me with his head down and brushes past, and a hand slides expertly into my robe. I catch the wrist. The face that comes up is young, and it panics at whatever it sees under my hat. He apologizes for his poor judgment, while his other hand goes for the sword at my waist, and 2 shapes at the roadside turn to face me. Repeat offenders, working as a crew. 1 man to lock down the weapon and 2 to close. The green bamboo sword answers before he finishes the sentence, and the apology is still sitting unused on his face when the blade goes through his mouth. He never understands how it happened. One of the others screams about the green bamboo sword and externalized mana, calls me an old ghost of the chi refining middle stage, and tells his partner to run. I do not give either of them the time. The sword sweeps through and the light goes out of 2 more sets of disbelieving eyes. They spent their last second believing they had been careful, that they only ever pick the poor, and that a man who walks the riverbank often enough eventually soaks his shoes. A middle-stage old ghost dressed up as a second-layer novice, baiting starving men for sport. Local cultivators really are insidious. The whole exchange from their opening move to my counter, including the mana shield I did not forget to raise, takes less time than a breath. Every shadow along that alley, who had been waiting to profit or simply to watch, sees a mana shield hanging in the air, which is the mark of the middle stage, and scatters. I snort at their backs about foreign loose cultivators who cannot keep to the rules, playing the part of a fearsome old man for the audience. Then a gust of wind goes through the street, and I am gone no slower than any of them. And 3 cooling bodies are all that is left under a gray sky. They will be stripped bare before the sun clears the mountain. Because in the cultivation world, even a corpse has resale value. I take a winding route home and get there before dawn, and the first thing I do is paste high-quality golden light talismans across my door and every window. 20-odd spirit crystals is the entire haul off 3 men who thought they were robbing me. 1 at chi refining 3rd layer and 2 at 2nd layer, and I cannot decide whether to call them fearless or simply stupid. With that caliber of judgment, something was going to happen to them eventually. I am not xenophobic about it. I hate cultivators who break the rules and wreck the peace. The black market has its own rules, and the first people who suffer when they break are always the men with the lowest cultivation. 20 years in, I have seen this often enough to be tired of it rather than shaken by it. At home, I strip off the scent-treated clothes and put my own face back on. Looking at the spirit crystals in my storage pouch, I decide the risk was worth it. Low-grade first-tier Godspeed talismans are beneath the notice of any middle-stage cultivator, and only low-level outsiders want them. They did have eyes, though, recognizing the green bamboo sword for what it was. 20 years ago, when this market was first being built, Iwa Palace released several hundred low-grade green bamboo swords into circulation. So a flash of green light, a scarred face, real killing intent, and middle-stage mana add up in a frightened man's head. What they add up to is a veteran who has walked these nights since before he was born. Then I look at the doors and windows of my own house, sealed with high-quality golden light talismans, and I have to sit down with the absurdity of it. I never imagined I would live to see a day when my problem was having drawn too many talismans. Every one of those sheets could have been a spirit stone, and instead they are sitting cold in my storage pouch or glued to my woodwork. Now I understand what it costs to hold something valuable and not dare to sell it. Until I have a safe channel, the black market gets nothing from me but low-grade first-tier Godspeed talismans. For the sake of staying alive, I am deliberately dropping a grade and taking spirit crystals when spirit stones are sitting right there, and it hurts every time. Past the 4th layer, I only get hungrier for the work. Cultivate, draw talismans, eat demon beast meat, sleep, and repeat a shut-in routine that would bore anyone else senseless and never once bores me. Out on the street, somebody comes out of his door and catches the smell of stewing demon beast meat. He asks who is cooking that at this hour, and whether they worry about the heat it puts in the body. It is not that cultivators cannot buy meat. It is that demon beast meat costs real spirit crystals. A man who simply wants meat can walk out past the wall and hunt an ordinary animal. His neighbor tells him to keep his voice down, because that smell is coming from Talisman Master Im's house. The name lands, and the envy comes right behind it. He says the old line about how an unranked Talisman Master is worth less than a dog. A Talisman Master who has found his path earns spirit crystals faster than men like them ever will out on a hunt. The other one corrects him, since spirit crystals are not the point and a high-quality talisman is worth a whole spirit stone. Once Talisman Master Im picks up medium-grade first-tier work, he will start at 3 spirit stones a sheet. Nearly every cultivator alive can draw a talisman. One who can draw a high-quality talisman is 1 in 1,000. Then Li Liu knocks on my door in a hurry with grief all over his face and tells me Elder Yuk has passed away. The news goes through me and takes 20 years with it. Elder Yuk was the immortal master who led us into the cultivation world. When we failed the assessment, he did not wash his hands of us. He pointed us at a road we could walk. I tell Li Liu we are going to see him off. Master and disciple is a formal thing, and we were never that. But a man who hands a stranger a second life has earned the title regardless of what any register says. The letter reached Li Lu first because a live-in son-in-law has a fixed address, and the beast-taming Jew family is a stable place to send word. A first-tier loose cultivator like me might have 3 homes in a decade. Cheongsu Bay is the nearest cultivator settlement to the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, under Iwa Palace like everything else out here, and Elder Yuk lived there. We leave the moment we hear. Li Liu calls back over his shoulder that we are almost in, and by then we have run spirit steeds day and night and put 3,000 miles behind us in 3 days. The spirit steeds are domesticated demon beasts, and a son-in-law of the beast-taming Jew family can borrow a pair without much trouble. Being a son-in-law also means he had to file word with the family before he was allowed to leave the market at all. Hooves come down crisp on the street while the sky is still gray, and Liu Liu tells me we have arrived. We dismount in front of Cheongsu Bay Market, built along a bend in the river and noticeably emptier than the market I live in. Before we can go through the formation at the gate, we have to show our identity jade plaques, which is what a travel permit is called out here. The scenery pulls at both of us. 20 years ago, after we failed the selection, Elder Yuke brought us here and taught us for 2 months before recommending us on to the Green Bamboo Mountain Market. Travel-worn and unwashed, we walk to his house. The little courtyard is hung with white funeral banners and there are not many people standing in it. Li Lu and I come through the gate, see the memorial tablet in the morning hall, and neither of us manages to keep his eyes dry. We offer incense, kneel and press our foreheads to the ground, and tell him we came late. 20 years gone in one blink. Elder Yuke cultivated the Everspring art and lived to 138 before dying peacefully in his sleep, which counts as a rare piece of luck in the cultivation world. Somebody greets us both by name and our faces light up, because it is Shim Ryul, who used to be a young marquis and has never once put on airs about it. He comes over subdued, pulls us aside, and tells us that County Princess Un is here too, inside comforting junior sister Yuke. Li Lu is openly astonished, since word has it the little county princess is an inner sect disciple of Iwa Palace now. The 4 of us who went up that mountain together were County Princess Unyo, young Marquis Shimriol, a prince's household swordsman named Injangan, and a farm boy named Li Lu. Junior sister Yuke is Elder Yuke's granddaughter. Shimriol says with real feeling that he never expected the 2 of us to have reached the chi refining middle stage. I cup my hands and tell him we are nothing next to him, which is simple arithmetic, since he stands at chi refining 5th layer. By years I am the oldest. Li Lu comes next, and Shimriol is the youngest. The cultivation world counts strength before birthdays, so we call him brother and mean it as respect. He says all he ever heard was that the 2 of us had gone off to the Green Bamboo Mountain Market, and here we are 2 decades later. All 3 of us drew low-grade spiritual roots, and all 3 were rejected. And the difference was that his family had connections, so his resources were never anything like ours. Every mortal dynasty has a major sect standing behind it. While the 3 of us talk quietly through the years we missed, the courtyard fills up in a way a quiet man's funeral should not. Shimriol dips his head with a thin, contemptuous smile and explains by voice transmission. Every one of these people is calling themselves a classmate or a beneficiary of Elder Yuke's kindness because they heard County Princess Unyo came. That lands, and with it comes a memory of a small girl carved out of jade who talked like a woman of 40. Unyo is an intersect disciple of Iwa Palace with a high-grade spiritual root, and her water affinity is said to sit 1 step short of earthly spiritual root aptitude. Inside a sect like Iwa Palace, she may not rank as a peerless prodigy, but from where men like us are standing, she is somewhere above the weather. They file in, one after another offering condolences, some melancholy and genuine about what Elder Yuke did for them. Others announce without embarrassment that he set them on the immortal path too, which apparently makes them classmates. The contempt has gone off Shimriol's face by then, replaced with grief he wears comfortably while he works the room. He tells us by voice transmission that County Princess Un has already reached chi refining 9th layer. She has begun preparing for the sect competition, and foundation establishment is a strong probability for her. Li Liu and I look at each other with the same envy on both faces. 4 of us walked onto this road on the same morning, and 1 of us is planning foundation establishment, while 2 of us have only just scraped into the middle stage. That is what a spiritual root is worth. The back hall opens, and every whispered piece of networking in that courtyard stops at once. Yuke Chung Chung comes out slowly in white mourning clothes with grief plain on her face, and she has the look of a girl from a modest household, and nobody is looking at her. She thanks everyone for coming to see Elder Yuke off in a voice that is cold and carries nobility she did not have to learn. County Princess Unyo wears plain, close-cut clothes, with brows like distant green peaks, and a delicate beauty that her heroic bearing turns cold. And the sorrow in her is not performed. The little girl carved out of jade is entirely gone. The room greets her as fairy and as fellow Taoist, and the men who once took guidance from Elder Yuke shamelessly call her junior sister Un. Because her cultivation runs deep and her technique is water attribute, she still looks like a girl, so nobody dares call her senior sister, and everyone here is old enough to know better than to try. Princess was only ever what the 4 of us called her back then. Everyone in that courtyard wears sorrow, and there is no telling how much of it is real. A funeral that should have been quiet turns into a crowd, because a late-stage chi-refining intersect disciple of Iwa Palace happens to be standing in it. I get another honest look at the world I live in. Only after the burial does the place go quiet again. Li Liu and I know exactly where we sit, so we stay back in the crowd until Elder Yuke is in the ground. We are on our way out, when Shimrial stops us and says the county princess has invited us to Chwaizen Tower. I am openly startled, and Li Lu is close to panic. He had the lowest station of any of us, and he is being asked to sit down with a woman preparing for foundation establishment. The distance between us has not narrowed in 20 years. It has opened up. Shim Ryol reads both of our faces and says easily that it is only a reunion. He tells us the princess seems cold and is genuinely kind, and that the four of us once agreed to meet every 5 years. It never happened, because we were far away at the Green Bamboo Mountain Market. He was traveling with cultivators of the royal line, and she was locked inside her sect. That agreement comes back to me whole. 4 young people from 4 different stations, freshly dropped into the cultivation world, standing at a crossroads and swearing to meet every 5 years, because none of us could stand the parting. What we actually managed was letters, and then not even letters, and the promise turned into a thing we had believed when we were young enough to believe things. Out here, a man rarely controls his own circumstances, and distance finishes whatever intention survives. Chwaizen Tower gives us a heaven-grade private room, and 5 of us around one table: Unyo, Shimriol, Li Yu, myself, and Y Boy. Y Boy sat the assessment in our batch, but he came as the descendant of a close friend of Elder Yuk, and we only met him at the foot of the mountain. The other 4 of us came up out of the mortal world together. He was not part of the invitation until somebody pointed out that he had come to see Elder Yukov, and technically counts as a classmate. Shimriol tells Unyu not to decline the seat of honor, since the cultivation world respects strength and she takes it without argument, and sits straight-backed. 20 years have taken the youth out of all 5 faces at that table. Hers has changed the most, and in our eyes she has become a great cultivator standing at chi refining perfection. Shimriol raises his cup with red eyes and says we should drink to ourselves first, for being able to gather it all after 20 years. Only people who have fought their way through this world understand what is bitter about it. That all 5 of us are still breathing makes us luckier than most of the men we started with. Nobody makes a speech. Even Unyo's cold expression shifts a fraction as she drinks. I empty my cup with more feeling in me than I know what to do with. After a round, the strangeness between us thins out. When they learn Li Liu broke through inside the Jew family and fathered a son with a spiritual root, Shimriol and Weebui are both amazed. The farm boy with the lowest station of any of us has quietly put down roots that will outlive him. And even a young Marquis lets a little envy show. Shimriol says that if he had known, he would have gone to the Green Bamboo Mountain Market with us back then. At Chi Refining 5th layer, he is the only one who knows what these years cost him. Then Y-Boy turns to me with a smile and asks, in a tone of manufactured surprise, whether he did not hear that I was preparing to go back down to the mortal world. Unyo and Shimriol both frown at that. Y-Boy was arrogant about the 4 of us who came up out of the mortal world 20 years ago, and 2 decades have improved him only selectively. He does not use that tone on the county princess or the young marquis, and he has even dropped it with Liu. Liu glares across the table at him, because Y-Boy was the man he liked least back then, and nothing has changed. He tells him flatly that he has it wrong, that I am already proficient at low-grade first-tier high-quality talismans, which is more than can be said for a half-baked alchemist. I smile and pick it up from there, saying I did intend to go back, and that letting go of the obsession is precisely when the epiphany arrived and everything came clear. What I am actually doing while I say it is arithmetic. Only 2 people knew I was giving up, Li Lu and Elder Yuk, since I put it in a letter. It was not Li Lu, and the old man was not that kind of man. Y Bui has not done well for himself these last years, and Elder Yuk died leaving a substantial estate behind him. I keep my face pleasant. With the county princess sitting at this table, protecting a granddaughter is not going to be difficult. The phrase lands on the room a moment later, and nobody at that table is stupid. Everyone understands it means I have the hands to learn medium-grade first-tier work. Y-Boy goes red, laughs awkwardly, admits he misspoke and drains his cup as an apology. Men like him change faces the way other men change grip. Then Unyo's eyes come to rest on me, and something old moves behind them, and she asks what I plan to do next about medium-grade first-tier talismans. She calls me Big Brother when she says it, and my heart trips over a step. I tell her the market is expanding its reclamation, and that I intend to go back and look into the Jew family. I had been planning to ask Li Lu about it on the road home, and since it is on the table now, there is no reason to hide it. Li Liu lights up at the thought of having me around every day again. Shimriol raises his cup to congratulate me in advance, because a medium-grade first-tier talisman master outranks a chi refining 5th layer cultivator by a distance he can measure. Unyo says it is for the best, and I have no idea what she is thinking. So I lift my cup and suggest that since we are all cultivators, we could drop the worldly titles and simply call each other fellow Taoist from here on. I say it looking at Shimriol, and every person at that table knows who it is actually addressed to. He agrees at once and adds that he hopes we are still calling each other fellow Taoist 100 years from now, and the room warms up under him the way rooms always do. Unyo gives me a long look over the words Big Brother, and then she is the first to call me fellow Taoist Im. I keep smiling and sigh where nobody can see it. It is not cowardice, it is mileage. One careless moment out here turns fatal, and a female cultivator with enormous talent, high cultivation, and a face like that attracts more trouble than a man in my position could survive standing next to. If I keep my footing, foundation establishment is genuinely possible for me one day, and I cannot afford to become somebody's target on the way there. My cheat hands me an unlimited future, not the power to fight above my weight. A man with that much road ahead of him does not get to be reckless. Waibui joins back in, and the table turns to exchanging cultivation experience and trading strange stories out of the cultivation world. Everything ends. We walk out of Twisn Tower, wish each other an evergreen path to immortality, and go our separate ways. Up in the attic of Twisn Tower, Unyo watches The Last of Us disappear from the window and asks Yuk Chong Chong, who steps out from behind a screen, what she made of it all. That girl next door face carries very steady eyes. She answers that Sister Un had told her before that I was the most suitable. What she saw instead was a man who has not surrendered after 20 years of hard cultivation, a man whose Tao heart is firm, and therefore no good for starting a family with. She is not blind or foolish about herself, and she knows her own aptitude as a low-grade spiritual root. Climb too high without capital of her own and she becomes decoration. She moves on to Wai Boy, who came back to Cheongsu Bay 2 years ago and has been visiting constantly on the strength of an old family friendship. His eye, she says plainly, is on the estate. Elder Yuk only ever reached Chi refining 7th layer, but a lifetime accumulates assets and connections. Boy's father died early. Boy has built nothing out in the world, and he intends to take the lot. She shakes her head at herself and explains the rest. When my letter arrived, her grandfather sighed over it. Boy overheard a fragment of that sigh, and the performance at the table today was built out of the fragment. She points out that even a prodigy like Sister Un has to move carefully in this world, and that behavior like his invites disaster eventually. A crooked heart is survivable. What kills a man is a crooked heart with no self-awareness attached. Unyo nods and sighs that she is right, that the cultivation world changes constantly, and nothing is ever as easy as it looks. Elder Yuk's granddaughter has no grand ambitions. She only wants a steady life. She does not even hold the coveting against Boy, since half the cultivation world covets something, but watching him work today has left her disappointed. Li Liu was honest and steady and would have been the obvious choice, except he married into the Zhu family 2 decades ago and is off the list entirely. If I ever heard any of this, I would want to lie down. 20 years ago, the Zhu family rejected me as a son-in-law because of my face, and today, I am rejected because my Tao heart is too firm. Li Lu goes to the top of every list on the strength of being reliable. There is no fairness in this world at any altitude. Yuk Chong Chong thinks it over and tells Sister An softly that the young Marquis is smooth, good with people, and knows when to press and when to withdraw. He is not weighed down by ambition, and her grandfather's connections will fade with time regardless. Perhaps she and Shim Riol could build a merchant guild together and earn Sister Un some spirit stones for her cultivation. Unyo asks whether she has decided, and she says she has, and smiles, because her greatest talent is knowing exactly what she is. Her only support at this moment is Unyo, and support fades once the supporter leaves, so the time to hold on is now. Done properly, it preserves everything her grandfather built, and if Unyo truly reaches foundation establishment, the backing behind her only gets heavier. Adding flowers to a bouquet is easy, and carrying charcoal through snow is not. Unyo agrees to introduce her to Shim Riol and says the rest is up to fate, smiling as she says it. She is far too careful a woman to have missed a single one of those calculations. That instinct for advancing and retreating keeps Elder Yuk's only descendant from ever becoming an awkward problem. The truth is that the best candidate was me. Yuk Chong Chong tucks the loose hair back from her temple and glances sideways at Sister Un as she thinks it. And Unyo is still looking out the window at a street where the figure has been gone for a long time, letting whatever was in her eyes drain slowly out of them. Girlhood sentiment burned off years ago under growth and experience, especially aimed at a man who fell out of the clouds. What she did not find today was the mediocrity she had braced for, because those confident dark eyes are exactly the ones she remembers. The gap between them now, though, she smiles at it, indifferent, and files the whole thing away as one more scene along a road, because there is only one thing standing in her heart now, and it is foundation establishment. We ride out of Cheongsu Bay on spirit steeds borrowed from the beast-taming Zhou family, and for once there is no reason to hurry. Li Liu treats it like a holiday. He spends the first stretch of road telling me that the little county princess is a genuinely decent person, and that she never once looked down on either of us. He says it as though that settles the matter forever. I have nothing to say to that. The girl grew up while we were not looking, and a grown mind is complicated no matter what the face over it suggests. She arrived at Cheongsu Bay, and inside a day the whole market knew exactly how many people had come to see her. I have lived 2 lives now, and I have never once seen that kind of news travel by accident. Read is a matter of interests. Anyo walked away from that gathering with a reputation for good character. The sect cannot hold many quotas for the Foundation establishment pill. Set aside every disciple with a family behind them, a legacy under them, or a connection above them, and what remains is very thin. Anyo carries a high-grade spiritual root, like the rest of that crowd, which buys her nothing in that room. A reputation for good character may not decide anything, but it beats sitting still and hoping. That is the cold reading, out of 2 decades of habit. The warm reading is that nothing in her manner looked put on. So I changed the subject to the part Li Lu will actually enjoy. I tell him it is good that she did not look down on us. Once fellow Taoist Un reaches Foundation establishment, we might stand close enough to catch some warmth. He goes soft at once. He tells me that in all his years inside the beast-taming Jew family, he has seen exactly one Foundation establishment cultivator, and only from a distance. Then he adds that we cannot go on calling her the little county princess. The child in his memory is already being painted over by the chi-refining 9th layer cultivator who stood in front of us, with her chin up. I laugh under my breath and go back to the manual in my lap, reading off the back of a moving spirit steed. It holds Elder Yuke's own working notes on the Everspring art, set down while he was a chi-refining late-stage cultivator. His experience surfaces in my head as I read, and something quietly rearranges itself. My panel moves with it. The Everspring art gains 10, and the proficiency now reads 23 out of 1,000. So the proficiency of a cultivation technique can be driven up fast on borrowed experience, which means the same trick has to work on talisman making. Practicing alone is fumbling around a dark room with both hands out. A late-stage cultivator's notebook is somebody in that room telling me where the furniture is. The manual is the real haul from this trip. Yuke Chong handed it over in Elder Yuke's name on the morning we left. What she gave Li Lu was a bedroom art called Dragon Playing with Pearl, something the old man picked up by accident. Li Lu's copy is the original. Mine is not. Mine is written out in a careful, elegant hand, and the ink still carries a faint orchid smell, which means Yuke Chong sat down and copied the whole thing herself before she gave it away. A meticulous junior sister, that one. I have no idea what she gave Shimriol and Anyo, and neither does Li Liu. Both of us are already fond of a woman we barely spoke to, and even Wei Bui, who came off that trip with none of his plans intact, is probably thinking kindly of her. That is a rarer skill than talisman drawing. Once we are past the boundary of the market's safe zone, I put the manual away in my storage pouch. Out here, carelessness is simply the slower way of dying. Liu notices the pouch and asks whether that is really one of them, and he cannot keep the envy off his face. He has seen them before. 3 spirit stones is the asking price, and it is not that he cannot pay it. It is that 3 spirit stones poured into cultivation are 3 spirit stones spent correctly. I tell him not to worry, that a day will come when he owns one himself. He waves both hands and says that with 3 spirit stones in his palm, he would rather buy dozens of pounds of high-grade demon beast meat and eat his way upward. He has no gift for talisman making, and that single fact is the whole distance between us. We stand at the same chi-refining 4th layer, and the gap between a cultivator with a trade and a cultivator without one is still enormous. Once I can draw a first-grade, medium-grade talisman, one sheet sells for more than 3 spirit stones, which is over a dozen low-grade spirit stones a month after materials. Li Liu has no trade to sell. The lucky ones in his position marry into a house like the beast-taming Jew family and collect a few spirit stones a month, off the family's arrangements, which is what he did. Everyone else walks into the wilderness after demon beasts and trades a daily chance of dying for cultivation resources. The returns on that work can be extraordinary. So can the funerals. The mountains close in around the road home to the Green Bamboo Mountain Market. There is a reason the Jew family are called the beast-taming Jew family, and it is currently moving underneath me. A spirit steed covers 1,000 miles in a day and takes rivers and mountainsides like flat road. Riding out, we went day and night and reached Chongsu Bay in 3 days. Coming home, we dawdle, and the market is still a full day ahead. Then the shape of the ground changes, and I frown and say his name. Li Liu's hand is on his broadsword before the second syllable lands, because whatever else 20 years in this world took out of us, it never touched that. I tell him there have been more and more foreign loose cultivators drifting around the market lately. We are less than a day out. The terrain here is broken and blind, and if I wanted to take somebody on this road, this is precisely where I would lie down and wait. He repeats the word ambush, frowns, and asks in a low voice whether we should play it safe and take a detour. I am already turning my horse. I pass him 2 high-quality golden light talismans and the swift travel talisman, and he takes all 3 without a single word of argument. 6 men are lying in the trees on either side of that road, and none of them can work out why the pair ahead suddenly turned around. Their leader is a burly man with evil chi sitting openly on his face, and he takes the change of route as a personal insult. He tells the others to forget it, that those 2 are chi-refining early stage at best, obviously outside loose cultivators who came here to try their luck. One of his men agrees that times have been hard, and that a handful of spirit crystals means demon beast meat on the fire tonight. So the 6 of them break cover and give chase. They very nearly close the distance. Then their leader, a chi-refining middle-stage cultivator, gets a clean look at what is riding the 2 spirit steeds ahead of him. Straw men, coats draped over the shoulders, branches lashed through them to hold the shape. He has just enough time to shout that they have been tricked. Something screams in behind them. The air goes to scorching heat, and when the bandit cultivators turn around, what fills their eyes is more than a dozen flames the size of hanging lanterns. Li Lu comes up through the fire, roaring that a pack of foreign loose cultivators do not get to make trouble on Green Bamboo Mountain, which freezes them for exactly as long as we need. Their leader recovers first, shouting that this is impossible, that we are chi-refining middle stage. Recovering first is what puts him first into Li Lu's broadsword. Their blades meet, his eyes go wide, and I can read the thought off his face from 30 paces. 4th layer. The rookie act was an act. Then a tree at the edge of the clearing flashes green, and he has time to scream one word about an ambush. That would be me. I had been standing flat against the trunk since before they arrived, wearing the color of the bark under the invisibility technique, and the spell burns off the instant I strike. Green light and blood goes everywhere. The strike opens the flesh along one side of the bandit cultivator's face and peels it back off the gums, which is not something anyone should have to look at twice. He screams that he will slaughter us both. Then, past caring about the pain, he triggers a golden light talisman he has been carrying against exactly this day, and golden light closes around him into a mana shield. I call for Li Lu, and the 2 of us leave the leader standing right where he is. The 5 early-stage bandit cultivators further down the slope are still coughing soot out of their lungs from the fireball technique, and we go into them the way tigers go into a sheep pen. 2 of them are down before anyone finishes screaming. Li Liu cultivates an earth-type cultivation technique, and his great saber comes down with all that weight riding behind the edge. My green bamboo sword magical artifact works the opposite way, flicking out like a viper's tongue and going nowhere except vital points. Middle stage against early stage is not a fight. It is arithmetic. Behind us, the leader is shouting that it is all a misunderstanding, that fellow Taoists should not be cutting down fellow Taoists over a mix-up. He has decided we are men of his own profession, and I cannot fault the reasoning. Bait the road with a spirit steed. Come in from behind. Force the mark to burn his golden light talisman, then abandon him the moment he does, because that talisman locks a man's footwork down, and go kill the cheap ones while they are still blind. He thinks he has walked into bandits with more years on them than he has. By the time he finishes making his case, 4 of his early stage men are dead, and the 5th has been burned past recognizing. So he stops talking. He calls us local bandit cultivators and ruthless ones, slaps on a swift travel talisman, and runs without hesitating. On his way out, he flings his storage pouch off into the trees in the other direction and shouts that he admits defeat today. 5 more bodies are on the ground behind him. We do not chase. We collect. I pick the thrown pouch up with my outer garment wrapped around my hand, and then we are back on the spirit steeds and gone. 2 hours later, with nothing at all on the road behind us, we finally let ourselves breathe. Li Lu says the man was a veteran, and he is right. When the leader ran, he did not run at our spirit steeds, he ran into the forest, and a man who chooses that direction has been doing this a long time. Chasing him would have put us in whatever he left waiting back there. We can set an ambush. So can he. Every loose cultivator out here clawed up from the bottom of the same pile, and none of us reached this age by fighting fair. I had traps laid on the spirit steeds too, which is the only part of the afternoon I regret. 20 years in the cultivation world has done almost nothing for my cultivation, and everything for my instincts. Li Yu checks the spoils for traps before he touches any of it. Then he digs out 42 spirit crystals off the 5 bodies, with not one magical artifact among them. The thrown storage pouch is poisoned, naturally. I blow the powder off it with mana, and with both of us braced for something considerably worse, the pouch turns out to be completely empty. Li Liu calls the man treacherous, and says he has the look of someone who has hurt more people than anyone has counted. I tell him the man stood at the 5th layer of chi refining, and that head-on, the 2 of us might not have come out on top. Banditry is the fastest road to wealth in this world. It is also the road wealth uses to get people killed. The pouch itself is still worth 3 spirit stones, so I toss it across to him. He catches it and does not know what to do with his hands. I remind him that he was the one who said he might own a storage pouch someday. He goes red, then grins and turns it over like a treasure. He could never make himself spend the money. A pouch that fell out of the sky is an entirely different question. I tell him to swap it out once we are home, in case somebody recognizes it. We stayed disguised the whole way, so our faces are not the problem. The problem is whether that leather carries a secret mark an acquaintance could read. Anything taken off a bandit cultivator has to be spent fast, before somebody with an interest comes asking after it. He says not to worry, and I believe him. He hands me the 42 spirit crystals from the split, and I take them without the polite refusal. Friends stay friends by being clear about money, and turning spirit crystals into spirit stones carries a premium anyway. When he tries to give back the golden light talismans and the swift travel talisman, I wave them off. The road is not over, and we can settle accounts inside the market. Then I ask him to find out what terms the Jew family offer an external talisman master. That one makes him uncomfortable, because the matrilocal son-in-law has no standing to negotiate anything. But he says he will go and ask on my behalf. I already know exactly where I stand. My abilities are enviable among ordinary loose cultivators, and worth nothing whatsoever in front of an old Foundation establishment clan. Until I can craft first-grade, high-grade talismans, nobody in that house will treat me courteously enough to say the words guest elder. A guest elder and an external talisman master do not belong in the same sentence. We reach the Green Bamboo Mountain Market alive, which is the only measure that has ever mattered. The place is filled up while we were away. There are unfamiliar faces at every stall, more trade, more noise, more opportunity, and a great deal more instability sitting underneath all of it. Li Liu hands the spirit steed back and goes straight to the Jew family management office. A fourth-layer chi refining cultivator does not get to disturb the Foundation establishment old ancestor of the clan, and neither does a first-grade, medium-grade talisman master. What he gets instead is Jew Anti, a late-stage chi refining cultivator past 80, white through the hair and the beard, currently the man who runs the family's outside business. Ju Antai remembers me without being reminded, and names him Jangan as the loose cultivator who walked into the market beside Li Lu 20 years ago. Li Liu keeps his head down and answers respectfully. He reports that I drew high-quality first-grade, low-grade golden light talismans, and have since reached the fourth layer of chi refining. He gives all of it in detail, because a Foundation establishment clan does not take an outsider on anybody's word. They are never careless about the basic identity check. The only man alive who gets to skip it is a first-grade, high-grade talisman master, which I am not. Ability is the only thing in this world that buys a privilege. Juantai strokes his white beard and decides my background is clean. 20 years of quiet diligence, and not one piece of trouble anywhere on the ledger. He tells Lie Lu that since the man is interested, the man can present himself tomorrow. Lie Lu thanks him with both hands cupped, and bows rather more than the occasion requires. The old man likes him. Of all the matrilocal sons-in-law in that house, Li Lu is his favorite, and not only because one of his own descendants married the man. It is the honesty. There is nothing folded up inside Li Lu, no twists and no second meanings, and in a family that size, an honest man is restful company. On the way out, Ju Antai reminds him that the market has been unsettled and that he should stay indoors more. He also tells him to swap that storage pouch for one of the clans. Li Lu leaves with his face shining, and it is not about the pouch. My business is settled. The reception hall of the Jew family, the following morning, Ju Antai sits the main seat in a high-quality magical robe, smiling the kind, approachable smile of a harmless old man, and asks whether I would draw a talisman on the spot for verification. I know better than the smile. I was here 20 years ago during the land reclamation, and I saw what this kind old man looks like when ground needs clearing. I tell him I will show him my humble skills. They want to measure my caliber, and that suits me exactly, because the only way to bargain for better terms is to let them see the talent first. The trick is not to overdo it, enough to impress, not enough to look unnatural. I walk to the table they have prepared and do not begin. I close my eyes instead and let my mind settle. Elder Jew takes no offense and lifts a hand to signal the two young Jew family cultivators at the wall to watch closely. Half an incense stick burns down and nobody shifts a foot. Then I open my eyes with my spirit sitting at its peak, lift the brush, and dip it into the special cinnabar reserved for golden light talismans. The brush moves, my breath holds, and the tip travels the talisman paper like a dancing dragon, smooth as water finding its channel. I catch Ju Antai nodding to himself. When I finally set the brush down, 8 golden light talismans lie there giving off spiritual light, and the glow off 2 of them is noticeably fiercer than the rest. Elder Jew says out loud that my craftsmanship is genuinely extraordinary. One of the young men hands me a towel, and I wipe the sweat the mental strain has put on my forehead. Then I cup my hands and give the credit to the brush and the cinnabar. Without materials of that quality, I could never have finished. 2 exquisite first-grade, low-grade golden light talismans. That is not entirely modesty. The spiritual brush and cinnabar they laid out are a clear step above anything I buy for myself. Elder Jew says he has no use for empty pleasantries. The Jew family will hand over the medium-grade production legacy for the first-grade golden light talisman. If my skills keep climbing, the family also holds a first-grade, high-grade talisman master's legacy. In exchange, I guarantee a set number of first-grade, medium-grade talismans every year, and I train 1 or 2 of their juniors. The beast-taming Jew family did not become a great Foundation establishment family in this market by being stupid, and the terms are honestly reasonable. They give me the production method and a monthly allowance of cultivation resources. I deliver a quota each year and teach 2 youngsters whose aptitude is poor enough that talisman drawing is the best road left to them. Stripped of the courtesy, they are paying me in advance and buying a long-term laborer. I bargain anyway. I ask whether 15 years is not a little long for a man already over 40. Elder Jew says 10 years is the floor and reminds me they are also providing a cultivation dojo thick with spiritual chi and covering every material the work consumes. I ask whether the annual quota might come down by 20% and offer to teach 2 more juniors in exchange. All of it is theater. Inside, I am close to laughing. They supply the talisman materials, which means I can hold my peak state as long as my hands last, and every sheet I draw beyond the quota is pure profit in my own pouch. On top of that, I now have a foundation establishment clan standing behind my name. We settle it with 2 satisfied smiles. Elder Jew says the family will be counting on Talisman Master M from here on. I tell him I would not dare accept the title, and that I will do my best by his juniors. The final terms give me a lighter quota for the first 6 months, and hold steady after that, and in return, I train the family's talisman masters properly, not carelessly. A house that size always has a crowd of people with poor spiritual root aptitude, the ones who will sit in the early stage of chi refining until they die. Beyond family duties, most pick up one craft and serve with it. A poor spiritual root is a worse hand than my low-grade spiritual root. Li Lu walks me out personally, and once I am through the gate, I look down at the low-grade magical robe on my shoulders and pat it a few times. It is silk under the fingers, and it does more than repel dust and look respectable, because it carries a real measure of defensive strength. In the mortal world, it would be golden silk soft armor, proof against blade, spear, fire, and water. No wonder a chi refining middle stage cultivator can grind in early stage 1 into the dirt. The gap is not only mana and spells, it is equipment. Plenty of early stage cultivators do not own even a low quality magical artifact and fight with ordinary sharp weapons, which cannot cut a low grade magical robe at all. They have even assigned me a cultivation dojo. I walk home with my face glowing, because there is packing to do. I am moving. Under Jew family protection, the labor tax drops to half of what I have been paying for 2 decades. The ancestors were right about standing in the shade of a big tree. Somebody knocks before I have folded. Free things. Old man Hio has been gone more than 2 months, and the haggard face I remember has come back with color in it. He grins the moment the door opens, and I notice before anything else that 4 fingers are missing off his left hand, taken cleanly, the way a demon beast takes them. He does not hide the hand. He holds it up and tells me he owes his life to my golden light talisman, that without it he would not have walked home at all. He grins wide enough to show every gap in his old yellow teeth. Then he tells his grandson to hurry up and greet Uncle M. The lad who steps forward is handsome, dressed in fine silk, and his usual humble smile has gone thin and perfunctory. "Heyo," Yun says the words. He is also wearing a magical robe, which I notice and file away. An old man Hio is already laughing so hard his mouth will not close. He announces that the boy has had extraordinary luck, scouted by the great foundation establishment Wang family, and passed through the entry examination for Iwa Palace in the same season. That explains the face. It is nothing more complicated than youth with somewhere to be. I congratulate old man Heo with a smile, because nobody hits a smiling face, and he boasts happily on top of it. Heo Yan says only the word grandfather, and it carries a whole sentence about wanting to leave. An outer sect disciple of Iwa Palace with the Wang family behind him is already an inner sect disciple in his own head. This market has stopped being home and become a mire he needs to climb out of. Standing here talking to commoners is beneath the schedule. Old man Hio goes awkward, and then he catches sight of my robe and forgets to be. He asks, half stunned, whether that is the Jew family. Robes the Jew family bestow carry the mark of a Jew family cultivator, and his eyes have always been sharp. I nod and tell him the legacy for first-grade, medium-grade talismans is not something a man finds lying around, and that only families like that one hold it. That says everything without saying it. He congratulates me properly, then digs out 2 spirit stones and the original swift travel talisman I sold him. His remaining fingers fumble at the fold of his robe, because he has not learned to live left-handed yet. I tell him my news is nothing, that his grandson entering Ey Palace is the one with the bright future ahead of him. Old man Heo laughs from the belly at that. Every hard year he ever swallowed was for exactly that sentence, and then he hurries off to say it again to every neighbor on the row. Still as stingy as ever, that old man. I am putting the spirit stones away when my eyes narrow at the returned swift travel talisman. There are a few fine hairs caught on the paper, and one corner is spotted with dried blood. The fur belongs to a black-winged wolf cub. So old man Hio found a wolf den and kept his mouth shut about it, which takes a kind of nerve I would not have credited him with. No wonder he came back radiant with 4 fingers gone. One demon beast cub of that grade is a comfortable retirement. I am envious for about as long as it takes to breathe out. My own opportunities are not thin, And as for a boy like Heo Yun holding a medium-grade spiritual root, my old self would have chewed on that for a week. The man standing here has his own road. The road is still long, and the 40 years behind me are only the wind and snow on a path I have already walked. Once the packing is done, I move into the residence the Jew family arranged, and it is not a room. It is a courtyard, with a small garden in it, and quarters far better than anything I have slept in since I came here. Inside, I open the Jew family's manual for the first-grade medium-grade Golden Light Talisman, and the notification lands almost at once. The Golden Light Talisman gains 5, proficiency at 18 out of 1,000. My face does not move the way it should, because I have finally looked properly at the lifespan column. Lifespan, 40 of 98. I can earn spirit stones now, and my cultivation has climbed into the chi refining middle stage, and yet the one number that decides everything has not shifted at all. Before the awakening, I was going to live to about 100. If the awakening arrived and I still lived to about 100, then the awakening arrived for nothing. The good mood I carried in through the gate is simply gone. It is probably the gathering that did it, watching people my junior by 20 years already laying plans for foundation establishment, while I congratulated myself on a courtyard. That is the wound, and I will say it once and leave it alone. My awakening came too late. 20 years earlier, and I would be sitting where those people are sitting, preparing for foundation establishment, instead of counting the years I have left on a panel only I can see. A foundation establishment cultivator lives 200 years. With the talent I have awakened, that is not necessarily aiming above my station. The awakening did not hand me immortality, but it handed me an unlimited supply of chances, and the longer I turn that over, the more the tiredness burns off. After 60, the odds of reaching foundation establishment collapse, which gives me 20 usable years. So I set a small goal first, and the small goal is chi refining 7th layer within 10 years. If 60 arrives and I have not broken through, then I will spend whatever decades are left enjoying myself properly, because otherwise I came into this life for nothing at all. Goal set. I put the manual down and go to the talisman table. Other talisman masters close their eyes and compose themselves before a difficult sheet. I take one deep breath, pick up the brush, and dip it straight into the cinnabar. The tip runs across the paper like a dragon and a snake tangling. Fluid and natural, and then a column of thick smoke goes up and I cough until my eyes water. First attempt at a first-grade medium-grade talisman failed. A normal talisman master would now need time to rebuild his state. I do not have that problem, which is the whole point of the talent, so I simply lift the brush again. The medium-grade Golden Light Talisman demands more from the materials and drinks far more chi, but the real jump is the intricacy. The pattern is layered and unforgiving in a way the simplified low-grade sheet never was. Paper after paper goes to white smoke, and then on the 6th, gold flickers up out of the lines and holds. I laugh out loud in an empty room like an idiot. Half a year ago, I was a disheartened chi-refining 3rd layer cultivator packing, to go back to the mortal world and let the rest of my life run out quietly. In less than half a year, I have broken into the 4th layer and drawn a first-grade medium-grade Golden Light Talisman with my own hands. A medium-grade sheet, and a defensive one, sells for 4 spirit stones out in the market. 1 spirit stone to 4 spirit stones is not an improvement. It is a change of trade. After that, I go quiet again, back to the reclusive routine that has always suited me. To the Jew family, I am simply a gifted talisman master who took 2 whole months to master and produce his first medium-grade talisman. From the 3rd month, the 4 apprentices they assign me start coming to the courtyard. Inside a sealed chamber under the Wang family, demon beast cubs are crying in iron cages, and 2 of them are baring their fangs at anything that moves. A cultivator makes his report to the Grand Elder, 38 Blackwind Wolf demon beast cubs taken in total, and 2 of them carrying the bloodline of the 2nd layer Wolf King. The Grand Elder of the Wang family is a foundation establishment cultivator. He nods with real satisfaction and says, "The beast-taming Jew family will take a fall they cannot get up from." The chi-refining late-stage cultivator behind him winces at the cost. He asks whether the 2 second-layer bloodline beasts are truly to be spent as well, since a beast like that raised to adulthood can stand against a foundation establishment cultivator. The Grand Elder only snorts. Demon beasts are difficult to raise, and every year and every resource poured into a beast is a year and a resource stolen from the clan's own young cultivators. The Wang family is prosperous and rising, and the Wang family does not need to keep company with animals the way the Jew family does. The late-stage cultivator cups his hands and agrees, and the Grand Elder's smile turns greedy. The market is unsettled, so the wolf cubs go on to the black market while the confusion lasts, and the Jew family will never let an opportunity like that pass them by. After that comes the rumor campaign, framed as praise. Every cultivator in the market is to hear the wonderful news that the beast-taming Jew family has acquired 2 more 2nd-layer demon beast cubs. The late-stage cultivator smiles the same smile back. He led the capture himself, he says, and he was thorough. They left Jew family disciple clothing at the dens and worked the scent of Jew family talismans into the ground. They even scattered broken shell from the blackwater turtle, the Jew family's own clan-protecting spirit beast. By now, the beasts must be out of their minds. When the demon beasts come down on the market, the Jew family will take the blame whether they consent to it or not. At the name of the blackwater turtle, the Grand Elder's eyes fill with old hatred. 20 years ago, that beast was the only reason this market did not become Wang family ground, and he says as much aloud. 20 years ago, the two families fought over market resources, and the Jew family survived only by playing the blackwater turtle as their last card, and they bled badly doing it. That is the reason a house of that standing ever needed to take in an outside son-in-law at all, and it is the reason Li Il has a wife. In the Unmu Mountains, wolf howls come out of a valley cold enough to stop a heartbeat. Under the moonlight, the dens are empty. There are marks all over the ground where cultivators fought demon beasts, and what is left of the pack is scattered across the slope in pieces, cubs and mothers both, dismembered past any need. It does not look like hunting. It looks like somebody settling a score. Beneath dozens of oily green eyes burning with something too close to human anger, two black windwolf demon beasts rise over the lip of the valley. The aura coming off them presses the air flat. They fix on the direction of the green bamboo mountain market, and then they howl at the sky. The sound shakes gravel loose off the valley walls. 100 miles out, demon beasts that have never seen the valley go rigid with their fur standing up. From inside the valley, an answering chorus rises, thicker and louder, and then the black shapes pour out into the night behind their wolf king. They do not run at the market. They run deeper into the Unmu Mountains. The wolf king looks back once toward the market as it goes, and there is a grudge in that animal's eyes that belongs on a man's face. When the pack is gone, the night goes silent in a way that is worse than the howling. On a big tree at the edge of the valley, a figure straightens up out of the dark. The figure judges the wolf king at second layer late stage and its companion at second layer early stage. Then the figure smiles and tells the empty slope that the beasts should go and be obedient. They are to drive every demon beast in these mountains, so the market can relive the beast attack of 15 years ago. The laugh that follows is dry and cracked, and the memory underneath it still puts fear on that face. 15 years ago, the market barely survived. This time is different, the figure says, because this time every cultivator in the market will empty their rage onto the Jew family. Then a flying boat unfolds and the night takes the figure away. Black windwolves carry a long memory for injury, and they are far more intelligent than their teeth suggest. Faced with the human market, they did not throw themselves at the walls. They did exactly what the Wang family gambled they would do, which is go up into the mountains and push every other demon beast down ahead of them. Sunlight in the courtyard and 4 young Jew family cultivators bent over the table with their jaws set. I tell them the path of the talisman is easy to learn and brutal to master. Their spiritual roots are poor, but every art in this world turns on the same word, which is insight. That word has stumped thousands of cultivators before them. Some men have an epiphany the first time they lift a brush, and others grind at it for decades, and then wake up one morning unstoppable. And the cultivation world is full of both stories. In a green robe, standing over a table correcting other people's brushwork, I look exactly like a teacher. I take the Jew family's benefits, so I teach properly and I hold nothing back, which is apparently rare enough to be worth remarking on. I do the work for the people who pay me. Besides, the part of my craft that actually matters is talent, and talent is the one thing nobody in this courtyard can copy off me. I tell them it is better to be precise than broad, and then I walk them line by line through the golden light talisman and name every mistake out loud. 2 hours later, the sun is high, and all 4 chi refining early stage youngsters have burned through more than half their mental energy and mana, so we stop. They come up together to say the lecture was excellent, that they have sat under Talisman Master Huang before, and he never explained anything this thoroughly. And they mean it. Poor spiritual roots make a young person grow up early. They can tell the difference between a teacher who cares and a teacher going through the motions. I take the flattery calmly and tell them to stop buttering me up, since I am eating their family's spirit stone resources and would be thrown out on my ear if I taught badly. They laugh at that. 2 months has taken them from nervous to comfortable, and they have decided that Talisman Master Im is easygoing. Their chatter drifts back across the courtyard as they go. The market has been getting lively, loose cultivators arriving in waves, and construction has already started on the outskirts because the market is preparing to expand. A great many loose cultivators have been lucky lately, and a great many black wind wolf cubs have been bought up. Then one of them adds that people are saying those cubs look like spirit beasts raised by the Jew family. A busier market means chaos, and chaos in the middle of a land reclamation is also an opportunity. I could move some talismans quietly and turn them into cultivation resources. A few first-grade, medium-grade Vajra talismans could go out with them, since medium-grade talismans are not rare in a crowd this size. Li Lu comes through my gate with a bottle in each hand and a grin, and I tell him spirit wine is not cheap. He corrects me happily. It was a family reward, and every cultivator in the clan standing at Chi refining middle stage received a bottle of top-grade spirit wine. That is what joining a large clan buys, a backer above and gifts whenever the house celebrates. I ask what the celebration is, since top-grade spirit wine runs a spirit stone a bottle at least. The clan chief, he says, bought 2 black windwolf cubs at auction carrying second layer bloodline, and raised properly they will become 2 foundation establishment spirit beasts. That is the real advantage of a black windwolf, a short cultivation period. The Jew family's town-guarding blackwater turtle needed close to 200 years to mature, and it has outlived 2 or 3 generations. I say the correct thing about 2 second-layer bloodline demon beasts, and I take the wine, and somewhere in the middle of it my smile stops working. Old man Hio came home with 4 fingers gone. Black windwolf cubs are flooding the market. The Jew family has just bought 2 second-layer cubs at auction. Any one of those alone is nothing, but laid end to end they start to look like a shape. I keep my face where it is, and ask casually whether a lot of black windwolf cubs have been going under the hammer lately. Li Lu nods without a flicker of suspicion. They have even been showing up on the black market, and plenty of Chi refining late-stage cultivators have bought. He privately wonders whether his own clan is quietly selling spirit beasts. Then he goes wistful and says that if he ever breaks through to Chi refining late stage himself, he will buy a spirit beast cub off the clan for the little one at home. I ask him to repeat the part about the Jew family selling spirit beasts outside, and my brows are already down. He laughs, proud of it. The clan has admitted nothing, he says, but in the whole Green Bamboo Mountain market, who does not know the golden signboard of the beast-taming Jew family? Even his own people believe it. That is the part that puts ice in my stomach. I signed with the Foundation Establishment clan a few weeks ago and congratulated myself on finally having something at my back, and what it feels like now is the outer edge of a whirlpool. In the Jew family hall, the clan chief, Jew Inmo, has just come back from auctioning 2 second-layer demon beast cubs, and there is nothing left of the good mood he arrived with. He asks his father whether it is true that a great many black windwolf cubs have been sold in the market. The old ancestor, the family's Foundation Establishment cultivator, white through the hair and beard, confirms it with a face like a closed door. The cubs surfaced in the market almost the instant Jew Inmo drew spirit stones from the clan treasury to buy his pair. Father and son look at each other and say the same name out loud, and the name is the Wang family. Jew Inmo curses them for a ghost that will not stay buried, and then, because he is the clan chief, he swallows it and thinks. Raising spirit beasts takes years, and second-layer spirit beasts take more than years. With the land reclamation almost on them, the Wang family is deliberately draining the clan's foundation, working the same trick they worked the last time. Those 2 cubs could be the straw that breaks the Jew family's back. Second-layer cubs are ruinously expensive to begin with, and if the clan gets bogged down and misses the window for raising them properly, the beasts are wasted entirely. The old ancestor tells him to hold steady. 2 second-layer cubs are still a good thing for the house. The family will celebrate them loudly and use the noise to recruit from the loose cultivators pouring into the market. Defense is all the Jew family can afford right now, because the gap between the 2 houses is not a matter of opinion. The Jew family has 2 Foundation Establishment cultivators, and the old ancestor's own lifespan has 30 years left in it at best. So counting the town-guarding spirit beasts, they field 3. The Wang family fields 5. Their 2 oldest still carry 50 or 60 years apiece, and the other 3 are in their prime. There is nothing to do but take what comes. With the land reclamation closing in, the marketplace turns into something I had not seen in years. Every street lined with cultivators setting up stalls and shouting over each other. One man swears his chi-nourishing pills both regulate the breath and raise cultivation power. Another is offering a first-grade, medium-grade Vajra talisman for trade and being insulted for it. And by the time I walk past, he is begging the man not to leave. Disguised, I move through the crowd and look over the medicinal pill I have just traded for. More loose cultivators means more disorder. And disorder is water I can fish in. Better than that, I do not have to touch the black market at all. In broad daylight, with this many outsiders, even the merchant guilds are moving stock. My stack of medium-grade golden light talismans looks strange in one man's hands and like nothing at all in a river this size. Conspiracy or no conspiracy, the stock goes while the going is good. Strength is the only security anybody actually owns. I come out of a narrow alley wearing a different face and a different coat, because 20 years in this market means I know that alley better than the men who built it. Doing that over and over, I clear most of my stock in under a day. At the last stall, I show my own face and haggle properly. I open at 3 first-grade, medium-grade fireball talismans for 2 of mine, and the owner asks whether I am joking. We settle at 2 for 2, and he throws in a bottle of fasting pills. Satisfied with the day, I take a window table at a restaurant the Jew family owns and order spirit wine and spirit meat until the table is covered. An externally hired talisman master gets a discount at Jew family businesses, and I circled through 4 streets to make sure none of that discount went unused. The room is loud, Somebody says the Cheon couple managed to buy a black windwolf cub. Somebody else is unimpressed, since a black windwolf is only a first-layer demon beast and a flaming tiger is fiercer, and several demon beast hunting squads are apparently preparing to join forces. Then an elderly long-bearded cultivator tells the whole table they see only the surface. So many black windwolf cubs means somebody emptied a large wolf den, and no ordinary hunting squad does that. On top of it, he says, the beast-taming Jew family has publicly announced 2 cubs carrying second-layer black windwolf bloodline, and everyone can draw their own conclusion from there. The tavern fills with envy. The beast-taming Jew family has made a fortune this time, and nobody else in the whole market has that kind of grandeur. I listen and go cold. If I can see the shape of it from where I sit, the Jew family saw it long before I did. Then again, I am an externally hired talisman master, and the terms I signed require me to supply talismans not to stand in a line and bleed. When the roof falls in, it lands on the tall ones first. So I eat, drink, and go home. I am a chi-refining 4th layer nobody, and worrying is a poor substitute for getting stronger. For several days after that, anyone watching sees a man who occasionally strolls the market and otherwise cultivates and teaches apprentices. In the secret chamber, I open my eyes and feel the fresh thread of cultivation power sitting inside me, and it is genuinely hard not to laugh at the life I used to lead. Spirit stones and medicinal pills every single day, and the breakthrough that took me 2 decades would have come and gone. Nothing teaches like comparison. I burn more cultivation resources in a month now than I used to burn in half a year. Out of habit, I open the panel. My name at the top. My lifespan still reading 40 of 98. My realm at Chi refining 4th layer with 2 of 100 filled. The Everspring art sits proficient at 869 of 1000. Under skills, the Golden Light Talisman is proficient at 18 of 1000, and the Swift Travel Talisman at a single point of 1000. Under spells, the Fireball technique is proficient at 458. The Breath Concealment technique at 219, and the Invisibility technique at 130. The Object Manipulation technique has climbed to skilled at 488 of 500. The Realm line makes me smile. As the Everspring art proficiency climbs, my cultivation speed climbs with it, and the curve is bending upward rather than flattening. That is entirely the Junior Sister's notebook. Those are the insights of a chi refining late-stage cultivator, and my understanding has moved further in a season than it moved in a decade. The smile does not last, because the market's unease comes back and takes the good mood with it. At this rate, the chi refining 5th layer is another 2 or 3 years away. With the land reclamation nearly on us, the market does not have 2 or 3 peaceful years to give me. I need to go faster. The trouble is that the Golden Light Talisman is the only first-grade medium-grade talisman I know, so I need 1 or 2 more crafting methods before I can quietly stockpile resources at speed. Having tasted cultivation paid for in spirit stones, I am not going back to the crawl, and at my age I cannot afford the crawl anyway. I empty the storage pouch, and spirit stones spill into my lap in a glittering heap. Over 90 of them in 3 months, not counting the medicinal pills I traded for and swallowed along the way. My eyes light up in my own pile like a peasant's, and I am a little alarmed at myself. An ordinary first-grade medium-grade talisman master clears a dozen or so spirit stones a month after costs. With my crafting state permanently locked at its peak, going all out, I could clear over 100. Every land reclamation is a rare and prosperous event, and it drags rare things into the open. Magical artifacts, spirit pets, legacies from the 100 arts of cultivation, even foundation establishment pills. That is my opportunity too. I will not let myself dream about a foundation establishment pill, but a talisman legacy is well within reach of wanting. Prudence says learn 1 or 2 more first-grade medium-grade talismans, and Prudence has a second reason. Advanced talisman masters can look at 2 sheets of the same type and tell whether one hand drew both. Talismans split into attack, defense, movement, and the rest, and the materials and techniques differ so completely between categories that nobody traces a man across them. Within a category it is easy. That is why every buyer I have sold to lately has been a demon beast hunting cultivator, since those men buy for their own use and burn talismans faster than anyone. 2 more medium-grade talismans, cultivation untouched, roughly 100 spirit stones a month after costs. My spiritual root aptitude is garbage, and spirit stones do not care. 40 years are already spent, so I either strive now or go back to the mortal world and enjoy the money. 3 months later, I come out of a long session, breathe out, and find the realm line reading Chi refining 4th layer at 11 of 100, 2 to 11 in a single season. Spirit stones do exactly what they promise, and at this pace the breakthrough arrives in under 3 years. The answer to every question I have is still the same, which is to earn more spirit stones. The stone in my palm has gone pale with its spiritual chi drained out, and my hand closes it into powder. A whole low-grade spirit stone as hard as iron. A spent one is gravel. I straighten my robe and sweep the dust out of the room before anyone sees it. Burning spirit stones daily is not something even ordinary cultivators inside great clans do, and a man who looks too rich invites questions. 3 spirit stones a day would double my speed outright. It would also cost me over 100 spirit stones a month, and the problem is not whether I can earn that. The problem is that the only reason I can move that much stock at all is that the market has gone chaotic, and chaos is a landlord who eventually asks for rent. Li Liu is outside my gate with his things packed, and I go to meet him. It still surprises both of us that the young Marquis, Shim Riol, has built a chamber of commerce with the junior sister. Li Lu spends the walk marveling that an old friend is coming to this market. I smile and agree and privately count the score. 3 men failed that examination with the same low-grade spiritual root, and one has married into a clan while the other is halfway to marrying Yu Chong. I had the looks, and all 3 of us had the same spiritual roots. It comes out this way regardless, which once made me genuinely wonder whether a face is worth anything at all in the cultivation world. Then I remember that my talent woke up, and I stopped keeping score. The chamber is small, but it was assembled under the little county princess, and Shim Riol sent word of the whole plan by letter some time back. Now that I sit under Ju family patronage, letters reach me through the family instead of being passed hand to hand through Li Lu. Liu calls on Yo a genuine genius, and I agree, because the woman has nerve. The chamber is plainly Unyo's vehicle for stockpiling what foundation establishment costs. If she makes it, she becomes a foundation establishment expert, and everyone standing near her rises, and the years they spend on her get paid back several times over. Nobody in that arrangement loses, so the 2 of us go out past the market gate and wait. It is noon before the caravan comes into sight, and Li Liu is grinning before I am. I am busy frowning at the shape of it, because a line that long should not look that ragged. Shim Riol spots us, swings off his horse, and hugs us both. He greets Brother Im and Brother Li by name, which means the young Marquis has finally learned Li Lu's surname. Li Lu starts to say young Marquis, catches himself, converts it to Brother Shim, and asks why they all look like that. Shim Riol flicks his sleeve in disgust and says the trip was cursed. They hired a team of Iwa Palace outer sect disciples for guards and had no trouble the whole way. Then, 3 days out, they ran into demon beasts one after another, including a golden leopard. My chest goes tight. A golden leopard lives in the deep Unmu Mountains, and I ask him what one was doing on the outskirts. The carriage curtain lifts, and Yu Chong steps down into the middle of our laughing. She says they found traces of many demon beasts from the deep Unmu Mountains along the road. She reads it as the reclamation drawing too many cultivators in and pushing the beasts off their ground. Li Lu and I both cup our hands and greet the junior sister, and it is strange how easily she fits with us. Liu agrees with her reading, since demon beasts hold fixed territory and a sudden flood of cultivators has unsettled them before every reclamation. I swallow what I actually think and wave them all toward the gate, telling them the welcome banquet has been waiting since morning. Shim Riol looks half-wrecked and entirely delighted, because the market is roaring and he brought a great deal of goods. That was always the plan. More outside loose cultivators means more spirit stones, and to a chamber of commerce a demon beast disturbance is not a danger, it is a season. A private room in Schweizen Tower, the 4 of us around one table. The caravan guards were paid their spirit stones the moment they were inside the gate, and Shim Riol laid on a table for them downstairs as well. 5 chi refining middle stage Iwa Palace disciples, led by 1 at the late stage, and all 6 of them smile at us like old friends. Nobody dislikes a generous employer. It also does not hurt that every one of them knows whose money it actually is. Shim Riol raises his cup and marvels that we are all together again so soon after the last time, and as the spirit wine and spirit meat come up he works the room without effort. That gift is exactly why Anyo put him in charge of the chamber. Then he circles back to what the letter asked for, since Li Lu and I are the locals and we know this market better than any of them. I set my cup down and tell him what we have. Over the past days we have looked over a good number of people, all with clean backgrounds, either the children of cultivators living in the market, or cultivators whose own children live here. A new chamber has to hire, and hiring locally means the staff already understand the ground. What I do not say out loud is that a man with a family in the market is a man who does not run off at the inventory. Yu Chong thanks Senior Brother Im and Senior Brother Li and lifts her glass to us. Afterward, Li Lu and I quietly agree that dealing with her is like standing in a spring wind. She and Shim Riol are cut from the same cloth. By the end of the banquet, the 4 of us are considerably less like acquaintances. Merchant groups roll into the market every day now, so a trading party belonging to Shim Riol and Yu Chong draws no eyes at all. Everyone with goods wants a piece of a prosperous market. In 3 days they have chosen a site, paid the spirit stone, and opened the doors, because in this crowd a wasted day is a day of profit handed to somebody else. Standing on the name of an Iwa Palace intersect disciple, the paperwork moves fast. Inside the shop, Shimryo thanks Li Liu and me, and Liu goes red and says the credit is not his. The family sent him. The procurement list is the Jew family's work. Run through him because he is convenient. That is worth thinking about. It makes sense for the Jew family to court Anyo since anyone can add gold leaf to a house already standing, and almost nobody carries firewood to a house in a blizzard. Anyo has not reached foundation establishment yet, and befriending her now costs little. Fail, and they have still befriended an inner sect disciple of Iwa Palace. Succeed, and there is no way to add up the numbers where the Jew family loses. What bothers me is the scale. The family's recruitment of outside cultivators these past days has been very loud for a house that is supposedly just celebrating. Yuk Chong thanks senior brother Im, and Li Liu nods along honestly and says that big brother Im has been cultivating here for years and knows far more people than he does. I wave it off. Between elder Yuk's guidance, the junior sister's gift of books, and my own interests, I was never going to refuse. I have brought them ordinary talisman masters and a good number of other cultivators besides. Everyone came willingly, because a shop under an Iwa Palace inner sect disciple beats a stall in the street. Then I hesitate over the next thing I want to say, and she catches it before I have decided. She asks whether senior brother Im has some difficulty he cannot speak of. Shimriol and Liu laugh and start drifting toward the door to give us the room. I shake my head and tell her it is nothing. The market has been a mixture of decent men and bad ones lately, and talismans and medicinal pills are circulating whose origins nobody asks about. I leave the sentence unfinished. It is finished enough. She is not surprised in the least. She looks pleased, in fact, and says that as long as the quality is sound, she doubts anyone would dare make trouble on Iwa Palace ground. That is a capable woman. Underneath the soft voice, every sentence quietly names what stands behind her. Unyo is an inner sect disciple. The merchant group was registered with the sect, and a sect standing behind a venture removes a great many problems before they start. I nod and let it rest. The cultivation world is full of men who have killed somebody, or are hiding from somebody, or simply cannot be trusted with anything. Cultivation families will not take them and they dare not show their faces in the open, so they sink into a market like this one and stay there. 20 years of drifting means I know very few chi refining late-stage great cultivators, and a very large number of everyone else. Shimriol says it always comes back to Big Brother Im, and the three of us settle on a base price. Business only lasts between people who keep giving each other reasons to come back. I agree to all of it while quietly working out that I should push my own talismans through Shimriol's channel in small batches, since that is far safer than the alternatives. It only works if I learn a second medium-grade talismans, in quantity, month after month, eventually draws somebody's eye. On the walk home, Li Lu asks whether I think the little county princess will make foundation establishment this time. I shake my head. If the competition among Iwa Palace intersect disciples is that vicious, he can work out the odds for ordinary cultivators like us. He thinks about it blankly and decides it is lucky we are only chi refining 4th layer, since men like us need not think about any of it. I laugh at him, because there is no arguing with that, and then I look up at the market roaring around us and cannot make my face do anything sensible. So many have come here for the foundation establishment pill. Almost none of them will get one. Before my talent woke, I would not have let myself say the words foundation establishment out loud in an empty room. 10 nights later, the market's calm breaks. I am cultivating when a roar goes up over the rooftops and drags me out of it, and my face changes before I am properly awake, because I know that sound. It is the Green Bamboo Mountain Market's defensive formation. The last time it sounded was the demon beast tied 15 years ago, and 15 years has not blunted the memory at all. I pull the green bamboo sword, my low-grade magical artifact, out of my storage pouch and get outside, and the formation barrier is already spread across the whole sky above the market. Li Liu comes stumbling from next door with his wife and children in tow, more frightened than I have ever seen him, asking what is happening. I tell him somebody is attacking the market and to get his family hidden. That is not the part that scares me. When a market this size panics, the enemies outside the barrier are rarely the ones who do the killing. The formation's light pours down over the streets, and the night 15 years ago is sitting right there in Li Lu's eyes. The whole market comes to a boil at once. A cultivator who got inside before the barrier closed stands in the road drenched in his own blood. He is screaming that the demon beasts of the Unmu Mountains have come out. Beyond the walls, under wolf howls, countless demon beasts are being driven straight at us. At the Wang family, the Grand Elder finally laughs out loud and tells his old ancestor that the beasts have arrived. With the formation lit, he says, he wants to see exactly how many medium-grade spirit stones the Jew family can still afford to feed it. The 2 second-layer cubs were never the point. Demon beasts throwing themselves at a market is ordinary business. A market whose formation fails is a catastrophe, and both families answer to Iwa Palace for the market's stability as the price of standing here at all. The Wang family holds the east and the Jew family holds the west, and a formation on that scale burns medium-grade spirit stones, which are precious even to a Foundation establishment cultivator. The beast-taming Jew family rings the bronze bell, and cultivators and spirit beasts answer it across the whole western quarter. The old ancestor gives one order, which is to hold the market formation, and the fury on him says he has finally seen the whole shape of it. It is not an attack, it is pulling the firewood out from under the cauldron and waiting for the water to go cold. He calls every Jew family cultivator to arms. Elsewhere in the market, a group of men who slipped in quietly some days ago are staring at each other, asking why the place is already burning when they have not made a single move. Their leader looks out over it and smiles like a wolf, saying that since the Divine Sword Sect will make war on Iwa Palace sooner or later, this is a gift from heaven. The Wool State holds three great sects, the Divine Sword Sect, Iwa Palace, and Heonium Pavilion, and the Divine Sword Sect is the strongest of the three. They need not have bothered. The formation has barely finished lighting and the inside of the market is already tearing itself open. There are faces out there that are excited, faces that are frightened, and a great many that have simply stopped pretending. Shops go down and fires start. Cultivators kill cultivators in the open for whatever the dead were carrying. Somebody, and nobody will ever know who, shouts the words Foundation Establishment Pill into the middle of it, and every eye in the street turns red. The Jew family summons goes out, and Li Lu stands in my doorway with his face coming apart, asking me to look after his wife and his child if he does not come back. An externally hired talisman master is not required to answer that summons, and if I went anyway, the family would spend the whole night wondering what I wanted. So I keep my voice level and tell him the market formation does not break easily and that he will be fine. Then I put 2 first-grade medium-grade golden light talismans and 2 first-grade low-grade swift travel talismans in his hand. I tell him to be careful and not to do anything brave. He looks back at his family once, then leaves without looking again. I send them down into the cellar. Digging a cellar under any house I live in is a habit I picked up decades ago, and I honestly never expected to use the one under this new place. Once his family is under the boards, I make the house look like somebody fled it in a hurry. Then I go up onto the roof, because the sky is red, and red skies mean fire. What I see from up there makes my scalp crawl. The market is full of cultivators with their eyes gone bloodshot, tearing through shops and each other, too many of them. Every one of them here to get rich off a disaster. I flatten myself along the eaves and layer the invisibility technique over the breath concealment technique until my aura is as close to nothing as I can push it. Spells of every color go off across the rooftops all night, and under them the screaming does not stop. In the Jew family hall, the reports come in one on top of another. Cultivators are looting family properties, and Divine Sword Sect bandits have been identified among them. The clan is running out of medium-grade spirit stones, and with 8 formation nodes to hold, the men doing the counting do not believe the family can last. The Foundation Establishment old ancestor hears all of it without moving, then sends a private voice transmission to his son asking whether he truly said Divine Sword Sect bandits. Joe Inmo transmits back that there is no mistake. The Jew Chul-san named them when he fled home. The old man's answer is a single word of approval, because a losing hand has just turned over. He orders his son to abandon 3 formation nodes, and to do it personally. Joe Inmo stares for a heartbeat, reads his father's eyes, and understands. He does not hesitate after that. He lets his Foundation Establishment aura out in the open where every eye in the market can see it, and leads the clan disciples off as though rushing to reinforce those very nodes. The old ancestor watches him go, and then turns his murky eyes toward the Wang family quarter. The Jew family is having a hard night. The Wang family is not going to have an easy morning. Demon beasts come down on the market, Divine Sword Sect bandits appear inside it, and the formation nodes that fail happen to be the ones the Jew family guards. If the Wang family's half comes through the night untouched, then the Wang family has some explaining to do about who they have been talking to. The turmoil finally burns itself out after dawn, which is also when the market stops being a place with no law in it. Some houses are laughing this morning, some are burying people. Some men got rich off the dark, and some men are standing in what is left of their shops. Li Liu comes back limping on one leg, with the face of a man who has been let out of a grave. He tells me the 2 medium-grade golden light talismans are the only reason he walked home. And then he cries, snot and all, and that is when it lands on me properly. The difference between us is not cultivation. It is that Li Lu has a family now, and a man with a family is no longer a loose cultivator who can throw his life away when it suits him. He wipes his face and tells me the rest of it, and I am not ready for any of it. The Wang family colluded with Divine Sword Sect bandits. The clan head himself was wounded. The bandits were savage enough to destroy 3 formation nodes, and once those failed, demon beasts poured into the market, and the clan had named the men who broke the nodes as Divine Sword Sect. Beasts, then a broken formation, then a great house exposed for dealing with bandits, all inside one night. Li Liu is already pulling his wife and child up out of the cellar and holding on to them. I stand there and say nothing. The Foundation Establishment clan I was so pleased to stand behind does not look like much of a wall this morning. To be fair, the Jew family did not abandon me last night because the contract I signed never promised me anything of the kind. They handed me the production manual for the first grade medium grade golden light talisman, and I hand them a quota every month for 10 years. That is not a family, that is a loan. The only thing a man can lean on is his own strength, and I need more of it quickly. A market in turmoil is a market full of openings, and this is the best chance I am ever likely to get. By noon I am out on the street, and the shop is gutted. I stand in front of the wreck of it saying brother Shim and junior sister to nobody, because who knows how many merchant houses lost everything in the dark. While I am asking after them, the street around me is busy arguing. One man blames the Jew family for taking a second layer demon beast cub, since otherwise the Black Wind Wolves would never have gone mad and driven the beasts down on us. Another says the Cheon couple who bought a cub a few days ago were both killed in the wolves' jaws. A third calls all of that nonsense and points at the Wang family and their bandits, and swears that after the formation broke, he saw the Wolf King himself in the distance. Everyone has a version. Everyone is throwing mud. Then somebody calls my name, and Yuk Chung Chung is standing at the mouth of an alley looking thoroughly the worse for it. She tells me Shim Yul is alive, and that he took a wound getting her out last night. He is recovering at the house, and she came to see what was left of the shop. She is looking at the wreck while she says it, and the smile she's wearing has nothing behind it. I tell her the only thing worth saying, which is that people surviving is the whole of it. I follow her back to the residence, and Shim Ryol is white as paper and flat on the bed. I tell him I am glad he is alive. He is not glad about anything. He asks me what kind of situation this is supposed to be, since every crate in that shop was fellow Taoist Un's Foundation Establishment preparation, and now none of it exists. Losing his own money would be one thing. It was not his money. Un Yo has terrible luck. The merchant house she built with such care had barely opened its doors, and the loss will run 700 or 800 spirit stones at the low end, and more likely over 1,000. Iwa Palace cultivators walk the streets in teams, throwing sound transmission spells over the rooftops. Anyone who harms a fellow practitioner or breaks the market rules without cause will answer to the disciples of Iwa Palace. With demon beasts loose outside the walls, a curfew now applies, and sect reinforcements arrive in 2 days. The Wang family and the Zhu family both turn out to help hold the peace. Inside the Wang compound, the Grand Elder is reportedly cursing the sky, because he planned for everything except a third party knocking his scheme over at the last step. The market goes quiet under Iwa Palace's hand, mostly because everyone can count. The beasts that were death last night become spirit stones the moment the reinforcements arrive. The bodies have already been cleared off the road by the time I walk it, and only the blackened stains are left as evidence that any of it happened. I find myself hoping somebody managed to grab a talisman legacy and all that. 20 years here has made cultivators killing cultivators into weather, and last night was only more of it than usual. The newly designated trading area is a different world from the silent residential streets. Overnight, everyone has agreed that nothing happened. It is loud, it is crowded, and it feels like a festival. Looted goods are stacked on stalls at prices that make no sense, with Iwa Palace cultivators watching coldly from the edges. Today, every person out here, seller and buyer alike, wears black clothes and a conical hat. A man in front of me calls 5 spirit stones for a first-grade medium-grade golden light talisman the price of a lunatic. I tell him that if he is not buying, he can move along. In 2 days, the Iwa Palace reinforcements start clearing the demon beasts outside, and buyers will not be scarce. Under a conical hat with my voice pitched rough and my eyes hard, I am doing a fine job of being somebody unpleasant. Everything else in this market depreciates today. Talismans and magical artifacts decide whether a man lives, and things like that do not go cheap in a week like this one. He starts to argue. I tell him to stop blocking my stall, and he buys it. Inside an hour, I have sold 8 first-grade medium-grade golden light talismans, packed the stall, and walked off into the crowd to change my face again. At the next stop, I offer 2 golden light talismans for 3 first-grade medium-grade fireball talismans and get told where to go. 3 more spirit stones and the answer changes. In under half a day, the whole backlog of medium-grade talismans I could never move safely is gone, minus a few I keep for my own skin. Medicinal pills, cultivation materials, and dozens of low-grade spirit stones sit in my storage pouch by afternoon. Danger and opportunity really do arrive holding hands. There will never be a cleaner window than this. Better than 70 of every 100 items on sale here are second-hand, and my stack vanishes into that like a coin into a river. Then I go to the stall I have been circling all day and ask the owner, flatly, whether his first-grade medium-grade flying sword talisman, Jade Slip, is authentic. The slip is broken, cracked all the way through, and whatever fight ended with it in his hands was not a gentle one. The masked old man behind it rasps that a first-grade medium-grade flying sword talisman manual is a rare thing. Any manual of that grade opens above 100 spirit stones even at auction. I offer 3 spirit stones and say I am willing to gamble, He tells me he would rather snap it in half. So I ask him whether, if he truly dared to guarantee it was genuine, it would not be worth over 100, and whether he dares. He has nothing to say to that. A man who could guarantee it would not be standing in a looted market selling it off a blanket. And half the goods out here are damaged besides. What he does not know is that I am looking at the small broken red mark at the end of that slip, and I know it intimately. At an auction 18 years ago, this exact jade slip went for 153 spirit stones. I remember it because that ruined red mark is the remains of a plum blossom seal. 18 years. If somebody forged it down to that, they have earned my 3 spirit stones, and 3 spirit stones is a cheap tuition either way. I tell him the market is full of men fishing in muddy water. Then I ask how he prices something over 100 that he will not stand behind, and my face says the rest. He goes red. A market this full of outside loose cultivators is a market full of fakes, and he only picked the thing up last night, and he has no more idea than I do. He says it still cannot be 3 spirit stones. I sneer at him and stand up. Then I tell him 100 or 200 stalls are selling first-grade, medium-grade talisman manuals today, some of them complete first-grade talisman legacies. Whoever I buy from, I am gambling anyway. He slaps his thigh and calls after me not to be so hasty. One man asks the sky and the other talks him down, and we are all decent people who can discuss it. When I walk straight toward another stall selling medium-grade manuals, he stops enjoying himself and agrees to 3 spirit stones. Goods for money, money for goods. Holding the broken slip, I rub my hands together where nobody can see. 20-odd years of cultivating, and surely a little luck is finally due. Then I read the back half of the slip and my eyes go wide, and my 3 spirit stones evaporate, because this is not a flying sword talisman manual at all. It is a first-grade, low-grade fireball talisman manual, the kind they practically hand out at the gate. When I turn around, there is no stall, no blanket, and no old man, because the old bastard clearly moves after every sale. I have hunted birds my whole life, and today a bird got me in the eye. Somewhere across the crowd, the same old man has set up in a new spot with a wretched little smile, pulling another identical broken jade slip out of his robe. It is always the old ghosts, he thinks. They are the greedy ones, certain their experience makes them cleverer than everyone else. In an opportunity like this, a man has to put out cheap bait if he wants to eat. He feels the hard edges of the spirit stones in his storage pouch and smiles again. Experience is a wonderful thing right up until it walks a man into a hole. Then the shouting starts up the street. Jinbo Tower is opening its legacies to the public. Talisman, pill formula, artifact refining, and even formation. I had already written off the day, and I was walking home to plan the grand talisman drawing strategy that would let me feast on tomorrow. That news stops me where I stand. Jinbo Tower belongs to Iwa Palace, and that single fact is the only reason it still has a roof. However ugly last night got, nobody in this market was stupid enough to rob it. Fishing in troubled waters is fine so long as nobody catches a man at it, but touch Jinbo Tower and Iwa Palace will not waste an afternoon collecting evidence. Then word goes around that the advanced legacies, talisman making, and alchemy are being opened to the public. The major sects and families have hoarded those crafts since anyone can remember. I put my disguise back on and go. For loose cultivators like us, that is good news. It is also a signal and not a comfortable one. A market riot is an enormous event for people at my level. For a sect carrying 3 golden core elders, it barely rates a raised eyebrow. Iwa Palace does not turn generous overnight unless something larger is moving behind it. Then I reach Jinbo Tower and my worry about being recognized dies on the spot. The crowd is a wall of bodies from the steps outward. Nobody here has attention to spare for one more shabby middle-aged man wearing somebody else's face. The attendant on the platform says it plainly. With the wasteland reclamation coming, Iwa Palace is opening its first-grade, medium-grade talisman methods, its pill formulas, and its artifact refining methods. Some rare first-grade, medium-grade, and high-grade medicinal pills and talismans are going on the shelves as well. He adds that the prices are marked and the tower treats every customer the same. I have never in my life seen this much money standing in one room. Some came for the precious medicinal pills, others for life-saving talismans. There are even high-grade rank-breaking pills on the boards, which for anyone jammed at the chi-refining 6th layer is close to a miracle. The attack types, Flying Sword, Fireball, Earth Spike, all first-grade medium-grade, are 100 Spirit Stones each, and the defensive ones 120. The Flying Sword Talisman Legacy itself is 100. Marked prices, no haggling, no favors owed. I stop overthinking and buy. Then the clerk tells me the Spirit contract is another 15 Spirit Stones. That one hurts, but I have already handed over the bulk of it, and a man does not walk away from a mountain because of one more pebble. I do curse the old swindler who squeezed 3 spirit stones out of me not long ago. There is a small mean pleasure in guessing his business is finished now that the tower sells the real thing. What galls me is that I never once found another soul he cheated. Apparently I was special. The clerk hands over the first-grade, medium-grade Flying Sword Talisman Jade Slip, and with that my storage pouch is scraped down to a few loose stones. A spirit contract is a cousin of the heart demon oath. Stripped of the ceremony, it makes a man swear on his own Tao heart not to spread what he has bought, not to descendants, not to disciples. If a family wants the craft passed down, the family pays Jinbo Tower again, which is the cultivation world's polite way of protecting a legacy. Forever. Break the oath and the backlash tears through a man's mana. The binding only holds over the chi refinement stage, and anyone who reaches foundation establishment slips free of it naturally. By then, a first-grade medium-grade talisman legacy is a trinket he could pick up anywhere. That gap is the whole difference between the circles a cultivator survives in. They will not even let me carry the jade slip out of the building, which I mutter about loudly enough for the people around me to hear. I leave with my shoulders down and my face sour. One more broke old cultivator who came to look and could not afford to buy. Marrow cleansing and wisdom opening leave a chi refining middle stage cultivator with a memory that holds whatever it is shown once, and the flying sword talisman legacy was not a long text. I have it. I take 3 wrong turns out of the market, change my face twice, and put my ordinary disguise back on. By the time I am hurrying home, my mouth is curled up on its own. A metal attribute offensive talisman, the notes say. One that manifests a golden sword blade on release, and the blade is unspeakably sharp. Then the newest word out of the Jew family knocks the grin off me. Li Liu is waiting when I get back, and there is envy all over him. He tells me every externally hired talisman master and alchemist may now claim a second medium-grade skill legacy, with a spirit contract. People in the clan say that a man who performs well, or marries into the family, can have the clan lift a hand so his children get the legacy too. He says he is no talisman master like me, and that the 100 arts of cultivation left him behind long ago. So the clan gave him a single spell and called it generous. Then he drops his voice and asks whether I have noticed the pattern. First Iwa Palace, then the major cultivation clans, and now he has heard the Li family has begun doing the same thing. He wants to know if something is wrong. Everyone is stuffing strength into cultivators with both hands while quietly signing them up. Of course something is wrong. I shake my head and give him the same tired line my father's generation used, that if the sky falls, the tall ones will hold it up. Knowing about it changes nothing at our cultivation level. It usually works on him. This time he goes quiet, and his whole face sags. He tells me that during a riot he was certain he was going to die. In the middle of it he thought about his family, about his children being small, and about not wanting to lose them. That helplessness of having a life that is not in one's own hands is a familiar animal. I have known it for 20 years. The difference is that when the market burned, I was glad to have nobody depending on me. Li Liu goes home every night to a house full of people, and that warmth has to be paid for. All I can tell him is that we cultivate and stop thinking, because thinking does not buy anything. He pulls himself together and limps out on the leg that has not finished healing. Intermarriage. The great families already have news the rest of us are not being told. Without strength, a man does not get into the higher circles, and nothing about that has changed since I was 20, so strength is what I buy next. In the secret room, I finish a low-grade flying sword talisman with my brush, and let the breath out of my chest. The panel tells me what I hoped it would. Im Jangan, lifespan 40 of 99. Realm, Chi refining 4th layer at 15 of 100. Cultivation technique, Everspring art, proficient at 932 of 1000. Skills, Golden Light Talisman proficient at 36 of 1000. Swift Travel Talisman proficient at 3 of 1000. And Flying Sword Talisman already skilled at 128 of 500. My worry was wasted. My talisman making sits at the first grade medium grade level, and the skill belongs to me rather than to any one design. So a newly learned talisman comes up fast. Low-grade work reaches skilled almost as soon as I touch it, and with a stretch of patient tempering it climbs into medium grade the way any ordinary talisman masters would. The Flying Sword Talisman went from entry at 0 of 100 to skilled in one night, and proficient inside a month is not optimism, it is arithmetic. Proficient is exactly the hand a first-grade medium-grade talisman master has. Once a craftsman has the underlying art, changing which talisman he draws is only changing the shape of the line. That gives me 2 first-grade medium-grade legacies of my own, the Golden Light Talisman and the Flying Sword Talisman. The Jew family's offer of a third, and the marriage talk stitched to it, are not gifts. I remember the night the market burned, and Li Liu was pushed out to risk his neck for that clan. My position with them is not a mystery to me. I am hired help who borrowed a technique and signed a 10-year repayment agreement to keep it, and now they would like me to spend my life as interest. I do not need their resources badly enough for that. If anything, this general opening throws the whole market into churn, and churn is exactly the cover I need to keep selling talismans quietly. Under Iwa Palace, the entire lower tier of the cultivation world is about to get stronger all at once. After our garbage spiritual roots, The thing that has always crippled loose cultivators is that nobody would sell us anything worth having. Snow comes down in goose feathers, and 2 flying ships tear through the low cloud and hang over the green bamboo mountain market with mana rolling off their holes thick enough to see.